Hello Space Fam කොහොමද වගේ රත්තරන් යාළුවනේ ඉතින් සෑහෙන කාලෙකින් ඔන්න ආව කොල්ලෝ මඩුව තප්පරයක් දෙන්න සවුන්ඩ් ටික හදාන්න ඉතින් මේ දැන් ගොඩක් අය දන්නේ නැතුව ඇති මම මේ මොකක්ද ඇත්තටම කරන්න කියලා මොකද මං අන්තිමටම ලයිව් එකක් කරද්දී මගේ channel එකේ subscribersලා හිටියේ 80 ගාණයි දැන් කොහොම හරි 400කට ඔන්න මෙන්න ඇවිල්ලා තියෙනවා I don't know what the fuck just happened to my channel bro I don't know what the fuck happened to my channel හැබැයි මේ දන්නේ මොකද්ද දන්නේ කියන්නේ දන්නවා ඒ කියන්නේ මේ මන් දන්නේ ඇයි ඒක වයිරල් ගියේ කියලා මේ සබ්ස්ක්‍රයිබර්ස්ලා වැඩි අවිල්ල නැතත් මේ ගොඩක් මේ ඕගොල්ලන්ට මං කිය හිටිය මතක ඇති මං අර ෆයිටර් ජෙට්ස් ගැන මාර පැෂනේට් අරගයි මේකයි කියන එන සීන් දිදී හිටිය ඊට පස්සේ වීඩියෝ එකක් කළේ නෑනේ ඊට පස්සේ මං කොහොම හරි මට සමහරවිට මේ බැලලත් මෙසේජ් කරනවා කියනවා විතරයි මේ කරන්නේ අර ෆයිටර් ජෙට් ගැන එන ආස පිස්සෝ ඉන්නවනේ මේ කොහොම හරි ඉතින් මේ ෆයිටර් ජෙට් ගැන වීඩියෝ එකක් කළා සුපිරියරව ටෙක්නිකල් වීඩියෝ එකක් කළා දැම්මා අම්මට වෙන්න පුතේ පහුවෙනිද බලද්දී views 1000යි දැන් කොහොම හරි 7000 ගණක් 7000 ගණක් හරි බලලා මුළු channel එකෙන් views 11000 පැනලා watch hours 600 ගණන් දැන් කොහොම හරි දැන් ගොඩක් අය දන්නේ නැතුව ඇති මේ මම මොකද්ද කරන්න සීන් එක කියලා. ඉතින් අපි මේ කරන්නේ මගේ Space Fam weekly live කියලා වෙනම සීන් එකක් තියෙනවා. ඒකේ කරන්නේ ඒ සතියේ සිද්ධ වෙච්ච space stuff rocket scene එක ගැන කතා කරන එක. ඒ අමතරව අපි මේ වගේ මොකක් හරි නිකන් ස්පෙෂල් rocket launch එකක් තිබ්බොත් එහෙම අපි පොඩ්ඩක් ඒක ගැන කතා කරනවා. මේ දැන් මේ අද කරන්න යන්නේ ඒ වගේ සීන් එකක්. ඉතින් ගොඩක් අය දන්නව ඇති අද මොකද තියෙන rocket launch එක කියලා මගේ Facebook group එකට set වෙලා නැත්නම් අනිවාර්යෙන් set වෙන්න අපේ group එකට. ඒකේ තමයි අපි ඔක්කොම updates අනම්මනම් ඒකේ කට්ටිය ප්‍රශ්න අහනවා. එහෙම සීන් තියෙනවා ඒකේ. මේකට අනිවාර්යෙන් set වෙන්න. මේ තව කියන්න තියෙන්නේ තව අපිට අද ගොඩක් කතා කරන්න දේවල් තියෙනවා මේ මට සෑහෙන කාලෙකින් live එකක් එන්න බැරි වුණා මොකද මේ මට මගේ studies වැඩ වගේ තිබ්බා academic පැත්ත මේ exam මේව තිබ්බා අරගයි මේකයි ඒවට focus කරලා තිබ්බ හින්දා ගොඩක් බාන්න බැරි වුණා හැබැයි මම content දැම්මා සතියේට එකක් දැම්මා මම content අනිවාර්යෙන් දැම්මා අනික මේ live වලට දෙන කාලයත් මම මේ videos වල පොඩ්ඩක් production quality එක level up කරන්න මේ ෆෝකස් කළා ගොඩක්ම ඒ සීන් ටික තමයි හරි අපි වැඩේට බහිමු Axiom 2 ස්පේස් මිෂන් එක තමයි අද තියෙන්නේ ඔන්න SpaceX එකෙන් ස්ට්‍රීම් එක පටන් ගත්ත අපි බලමු මොකද වෙන්නේ කියලා
Experienced American astronaut and one of the most decorated. Whitson flew 3 long-duration missions to the ISS and has more cumulative time in space 665 days than any U.S. astronaut and more than any woman in the world. She has conducted 10 spacewalks with over 60 hours out in the vacuum of space and has performed hundreds of research experiments on board the ISS. Not only is she the commander for this mission, but Peggy also serves as the director of human spaceflight for Axiom Space.
The pilot for AX-2 is private astronaut John Schaffner. Born in Alaska and raised in Kentucky, Schaffner is a STEAM education advocate, business pioneer, and lifelong space enthusiast. A pilot since the age of 17, John has over 8,500 flight hours holding commercial, instrument, single-engine, and multi-engine ratings in land and sea aircraft, as well as helicopter. He also holds ratings in former military jets and high-performance radial engine aircraft. As an athlete, John has years of competitive experience in water skiing, cycling, whitewater kayaking, hang gliding, skydiving, and base jumping. John trained as the AX-1 backup pilot, and during this mission plans to invest a lot of his time in STEAM education activities aimed at empowering educators and inspiring teachers.
Representing the Saudi Space Commission and serving as a mission specialist, Ali Al-Karni was born in March 1992 in Sabt al-Alaya, Saudi Arabia. Ali is fluent in English as well as his native Arabic. And as an Air Force captain, Ali has 12 years of experience flying on multiple aircraft, primarily on the F-15SA in service to the Royal Saudi Air Force. Ali graduated with a Bachelor of Aerospace Science degree in 2013 from King Faisal Air Academy in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia.
Also representing the Saudi Space Commission and serving as a mission specialist, Rayana Barnawi was born in September 1988 in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. Rayana has a master's degree in biomedical sciences from Al Faisal University in Riyadh, and also has a bachelor's degree in biomedical sciences from Otago University in Dunedin, New Zealand. If that wasn't enough knowledge, she is fluent in English and Turkish, as well as native Arabic. She has been a research lab technician since 2013 in the Stem Cell and Tissue Reengineering Program at King Faisal Specialist Hospital and Research Center located in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia.
There you have it, the AX2 crew. This really is an amazing group of people who have spent months preparing for this moment. We are already beyond proud of them and can't wait to see them in space.
At the moment, they should be making their final preparations inside our Falcon support building, and then soon they'll be making their first public appearance, fully suited and ready to fly. They should be walking out of those doors here in just a couple of minutes.
Yes, absolutely. But, you know, as excited as we are for this crew and their launch, there have been entire communities of loved ones, both friends and family, around the world who have been looking forward to this moment for quite some time, actually. So to Peggy, John, Ali, and Rayana, here are a few words from those who love you to help mark this occasion.
Hey, John, just wanted to take a second and give you a big shout out and tell you how proud we are that you're representing Middlesbrough and all of us on your mission to the International Space Station. We want to say thank you for allowing us to be part of your experience and taking us beyond the crater.
Hello, Chief Rashia Lima.
Good luck, John. Have fun. Godspeed.
Have fun.
Going to outer space. I am so fired up for you. You have no idea. Wish you the best of luck, and please, please do send me a postcard from up there.
Congratulations. So excited for you, John. Woo! Excellent. Good job.
Wish you the best of luck. I don't know who these people are, but they will also want to wish you a safe and excellent mission. Enjoy and say hi to the boys from all of us.
Yes.
Good luck.
Tell the skies, a new star is rising, an angel with a beauty ever so shiny, a blessing that showers in you. Go out there and be the light.
Such a sweet insight into all that support and all those friends and family.
Super touching.
That's great. The entire Axiom Space team and all of our partners truly appreciate and are humbled by the worldwide interest and support for this historic flight today. As the crew wraps up their preparations inside the Falcon support building, let's provide a bit of an overview of the operations for today. It's been a pretty busy morning already for the AX2 crew. They woke up at about 9 a.m. Eastern, had their first medical checks of the day, and then shared a meal with their quarantine support staff. At 12:20 Eastern, they departed the quarantine facility and flew to Kennedy Space Center for a special moment with family and friends at the tarmac of the KSC launch and landing facility.
අපි මේ
This event also marked the formal
මිෂන් එක
handoff
ගැන
of the
මේ කතා කරන්න පටන් ගමු මේ පොඩ්ඩක් මේක බලලිමු අපි ඊට පස්සේ ඉන්ඩේටර්ස් කතා කරමු මේ මිෂන් එක මොකක්ද කියලා.
And putting their suits on. Right around then, we also had the crew pre-launch briefing, and that's where we share weather and launch details and basically give them their tablets, which they get to bring with them during flight. And all of that brings us to where we currently are, suit up. We are awaiting for them to make their appearance, but yeah, there's been a lot of activity.
Absolutely. We know at about T minus 3 hours and 25 minutes, the crew began suiting up. And once that process is complete, they'll exit the Falcon support building and get into their Teslas. We will have 2 astronauts in each
Suit
of
up
the
in
Teslas led by
progress.
a support vehicle.
After that, it's a
කට්ටිය
short
අදුම
drive to the
අදිනකම
launch
ඉන්නේ
pad, and once they arrive, the crew
අර
will ascend the fixed service
SpaceX එකේ
structure in
තියෙනවා
an elevator up
අරනේ
to the 250.
අරනේ අපිට ඇස්ට්‍රොනොට් කෙනෙක් කිව්වම නිකන් මතක් වෙන්නේ මේ yes bro ජීවිතේ සංස්කෘතියෙන් ආ සියලු දේ නැතිලා නා ගෞරවයෙන් බුදුසරයි මේ මොකක්ද අම්මේ කියේ මේ දැන් ඉතින් ස්පේස් සූට් එකක් යවනේ අපිට මතක් වෙන්නේ අර මේ අර NASA එකේ අර ප්‍රෙෂරයිස් විසෙල්ස් ගහපු ඔක්සිජන් ටැංකි ගහපුනේ සීන් එන්න මේ අපි ඔයගොල්ලෝ SpaceX එකේ සූට් එක දැකලා ඇති මේ එන නිකම් සිම්පල් ස්පේස් සූට් එකක් තියෙන්නේ අපි පොඩ්ඩක් සර්ච් කරලා දාමු ඉතින් ඕන්න අන සර්ච් කරන්න ඕනේ everyday astronaut කියා අද ෆ්‍රේම් ඩ්‍රොප් වෙන්නේ නැහැ කියලා මම බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා ෆ්‍රේම් ඩ්‍රොප් වෙන්නේ සතුටුයි හරි කතා කරමු වැඩේ ගැන අද මැයි 21 මම හිතන්නේ ඇමරිකාවේ වෙලාවෙන් හවස දැන් 2ට විතර ඇති කොහොම හරි දැන් අපේ රටේ රෑ 12ට විනාඩි 5යි තව තමයි මේ තව පාන්දර 2:00ට තමයි මම හිතන්නේ මිෂන් එක සිද්ධ කරන්න ඉන්නේ මං හිතන්නේ නෙමෙයි එහෙම තමයි මිෂන් එකේ නම තමයි Axiom Space Mission 2 the second fully private mission to the International Space Station Axiom Space සමාගමේ කරන ප්‍රයිවට් පෞද්ගලික ඒ කියන්නේ කිසිම සයන්ස් එක්ස්පෙරිමන්ට්ස් කරන්න ඒ රෙද්දවල් වලට නෙමෙයි නිකන් කෙලින්ම ඉන්ටර්නැෂනල් ස්පේස් ස්ටේෂන් එකට පොඩි ටුවර් එකක් ගිහිල්ලා යන මේ සල්ලි වියදම් කරලා තමන්ගේ පෞද්ගලික සල්ලි වලින් සීට් එකක් මිලදී අරගෙන තමයි මේ අභ්‍යවකාශගාමීන් 4 දෙනා ජාත්‍යන්තර අභ්‍යවකාශ මධ්‍යස්ථානට යන්නේ අද. හරිද? මේ ඒ වගේ සිද්ධ කරන Axiom Space Mission දෙවනි මෙහෙයුම. මේ පළවෙනි එක සිද්ධ කළා මම හිතන්නේ 2021 හරි 20 හරි කියලා මතක නැහැ. හරිද? එතකොට launch provider තමයි SpaceX. මේ අභ්‍යවකාශගාමීන් 4 දෙනා අරගෙන ඒගොල්ලෝ ප්‍රැක්ටිස් කරලා ඒ සීන් එක කරන්නේ Axiom කියන සමාගම. එතකොට කස්ටමර් තමයි Axiom. රොකට් එක අපේ සදාලෝක පූජිත Falcon 9 Block 5 රොකට් එක B10 80 කියන බූස්ට් එක තමයි අද පාවිච්චි කරන්නේ. launch location එක තමයි ඇමරිකාවේ ෆ්ලොරිඩා ප්‍රාන්තයේ පිහිටලා තියෙන Kennedy Space Center launch complex 39 LC39 දියත් පූර්ව ඉඳලා තමයි අද දියත් කිරීම සිද්ධ කරන්නේ. ඒ වගේම ස්පේස් ක්‍රාෆ්ට් එක කොහෙටද යන්නේ? ස්පේස් ක්‍රාෆ්ට් එක of course it's going to the International Space Station. කොහෙටද ඩොක් කරන්නේ? Crew Dragon C212 Freedom තමයි මේ Dragon එකේ මේ ස්පේස් ක්‍රාෆ්ට් එකේ නම. ඒ කියන්නේ මේ Falcon 9 එකේ කවුද යකෝ ඇඩ් දාන්නේ මේකට? මෙන්න මේ දැන් මේ තියෙන බූස්ට් එක මේ කෑල්ලනේ දැන් ඔය යන්න හදන්නේ ස්පේස් ස්ටේෂන් එකට. හරිද? ඒ කෑල්ලට කියන නම තමයි C212 Freedom. හරිද? මේක අද ගිහිල්ලා ඉන්ටර්නැෂනල් ස්පේස් ස්ටේෂන් එකට ඩොක් වෙනවා. ඉන්ටර්නැෂනල් ස්පේස් ස්ටේෂන් එක තියෙන්නේ මුහුදු මට්ටමේ සිට කිලෝමීටර් 420ක් උඩින් තියෙන අංශක 51ක ආනතයකින් යුත් සර්කියුලර් ඔබිට් එකක. හරිද? ඊට පස්සේ දවස් 219කට මොකද නෑ නෑ ඒ අර 320 මේ 212 එක මේ කලින් මිෂන් එක සීන් එකේ තියෙන. Will they attempt to recover the first stage? Of course, man. It's Falcon 9. එතකොට කොහෙටද ෆස්ට් ස්ටේජ් එක ලෑන්ඩ් කරන්න? Of course, I still love you the shortfall of gravitas the නෑ නෑ අද ඩ්‍රෝන් ශිප් උඩට නෙමේ මේක ලෑන්ඩ් කරන්න යන්නේ. අද කෙලින්ම ලෑන්ඩිං සෝන් කේප් කැනවරල් ස්පේස් ෆෝස් ස්ටේෂන් එකේ තියෙන ලෑන්ඩිං සෝන් 1 එකට තමයි ලෑන්ඩ් කරන්නේ. එතකොට දියත් කරන්න කොහෙද? කෙනඩි ස්පේස් සෙන්ටර් එකේ ඉඳලා ලෑන්ඩ් කරන්නේ කේප් කැනවරල් ස්පේස් ෆෝස් ස්ටේෂන් එක. දෙකම ෆ්ලොරිඩා තියෙන. ඕගොල්ලෝ මගේ අද දාපු වීඩියෝ ගිහලා බලන්න ඕනේ. අද ගිහලා බලන්න ඕනේ. මේ මොකද මේ ඒකේ ඔක්කොඩ පෝට් කනවල ගැන එහෙම ගොඩක් දේවල් කියලා තියෙනවා. අනිවාර්යෙන් ඒක ගිහිල්ලා බලන්න. මේ මොකද ඔය කෙනඩි ස්පේස් සෙන්ටර් එකයි කේප් කැනවරල් ස්පේස් ෆෝස් ස්ටේෂන් එක ගැන මම පොඩි විස්තරයක් එක් කරලා තියෙනවා. හරිද? ওই දෙක තියෙන පොඩ්ඩක් එක්කලංකෝ. කෙනඩි ස්පේස් සෙන්ටර් එකයි දෙකම ෆ්ලොරිඩා වල තියෙන්නේ. Will they be attempting to fairings? The fairings නෑනේ අද. නෑ අද පේලෝඩ් යන්න මේ ගෙනියන්නේ කෙලින්ම මිනිස්සු අතර දෙනේ. ඒ හින්දා මේකේ fairings නෑ. හරිද? fairings තියෙන්නේ පේලෝඩ් එකක් තියෙන දවස්වලට. අද මේකේ කෙලින්ම ඩ්‍රැගන් කැප්සූල් එකක් තමයි යන්නේ මිනිස්සු 4 දෙනෙක් ඉන්න. හරිද? Weather is currently 60% go for launch. හැබැයි මේ මැයි 20 තමයි මේක දාලා තියෙන්නේ. දැන් වෙනකොට 90ක් විතර මේ දාලා තියෙන්නේ. මේ 90ක් විතර කාලගුණය හොඳයි. එතකොට මේක ගොඩක් විශේෂ මේ ලොන්ච් එකක්. මොකද මේක තමයි මිනිස්සු සහිත මෙහෙයුමක් තියෙන බූස්ට් එකක් නැවත ලොන්ච් සයිට් එකට ඇවිල්ලා ලෑන්ඩ් කරන්නේ පළවෙනි වතාවට. තේරුණාද? ඒ කියන්නේ මෙච්චර කල් ලෑන්ඩ් ලොන්ච් සයිට් එකට ඇවිල්ලා දැන් සාමාන්‍ය අපි හැම වෙලේම ගොඩක් කලාවට 180ක් 85ක් විතරම ෆැල්කන් 9 බූස්ටර්ස් ලෑන්ඩ් කරන්නේ ඩ්‍රෝන් ෂිප් උඩටනේ. කලාතුරකින් තමයි ගොඩක් ඉන්ධන ඉතුරු වුණොත් තමයි ආයෙත් ලෑන්ඩින් සෝන් එකට ඇවිල්ලා ලෑන්ඩ් කරන්නේ. හැබැයි මෙච්චර කාලයකට සිද්ධ කරපු ක්‍රූඩ් මිෂන් එකක බූස්ට් එකක් ලොන්ච් සයිට් එකට ඇවිල්ලා ලෑන්ඩ් කරලා තිබ්බේ නැහැ. ඔන්න අද සිද්ධ කරන්න යනවා. අද අපිට ඒක බලා ගන්න පුළුවන්. ඉන්ටර්නැෂනල් ස්පේස් ස්ටේෂන් එකට එහෙම නැත්නම් ජාත්‍යන්තර අභ්‍යවකාශ මධ්‍යස්ථානයේ සිද්ධ කරන්න ඉන්න දෙවනි පෞද්ගලික මෙහෙයුම අනිත් ඒවා ඔක්කොම කරන්නේ NASA එකෙන් ඔය ESA එකෙන් ඒ එහෙම සීන් එක කරන්නේ. අද පෞද්ගලිකව දෙවෙනි එක ෆැල්කන් 9 226 වෙනි ලොන්ච් එක. 226 bro I don't know. 194 වෙනි බූස්ටර් ලෑන්ඩින් එක. ඒ වගේම කන්සෙකටිව් ලෑන්ඩින්. මොකද කන්සෙකටිව් ලෑන්ඩින් 120 වතාවක් එක දිගට ලෑන්ඩ් කරලා තියෙනවා මේ ෆැල්කන් 9 බූස්ටර්ස්. ඒ වගේම SpaceX එකෙන් 2023 සිද්ධ කරන්න ඉන්න 35 වෙනි රොකට් ලොන්ච් එක. තව එතකොට 65ක් තියෙනවා සිද්ධ කරන්න. මොකද ඊලොන් මස් වචනේ දීලා තියෙනවා 100ක් කරනවා කියලා. ඒ වගේම LC-39 කෙනඩි ස්පේස් සෙන්ටර් එකේ ලොන්ච් කම්ප්ලෙක්ස් 39 ඒවල සිද්ධ කරන 65 වෙනි SpaceX රොකට් ලොන්ච් එක. ඒ වගේම 2023 අවුරුද්ද කරන මුළු ලෝකෙම සිද්ධ කරන 73 වෙනි ඕබිටල් ලොන්ච් ඇටෙම්ප්ට් එක. හරි. ඊට පස්සේ අපි කතා කරමු what this all mean. SpaceX will launch 4 astronauts to the International Space Station aboard its Crew Dragon vehicle, with all 4 crew members being tourists. ඒ කියන්නේ මේ මේ NSF එකේ උන්ට පිස්සුද කොහෙද? එක පැත්තකින් මේ ඇක්සියෝම් 2 මිෂන් එක ලයිව් එක දීලා තව ලයිව් එකක් පටන් අරන් NASA ස්පේස් ෆ්ලයිට් මේ වීක්ලි ලයිව් එක. අනේ මන් දන්නේ නැහැ රත්තර යාළුවනේ. හරි අපි මේක සිංහල කතා කරමු. ඇක්සියෝම් ස්පේස් මිෂන් 2 මං කියවන දෙවෙනි මෙහෙයුම කියලා. අද මේක කමාන්ඩර් විදියට වැඩ කරන්නේ පෙගී විට්සන්. මම මේ කට්ටිය ගැන මම රෙකෝඩඩ් වීඩියෝ එකක් අනිවාර්යෙන් මේ ඇක්සියෝම් 2 මිෂන් එක ගැන ගේනවා. ඒතකොට පයිලට් විදියට අද වැඩ ගන්න ජෝන් ෂොෆ්නාර්. මෙයා තමයි අලි අල් කුරාන් තමයි අද සෞදි අරාබියෙන් සෙට් වෙලා ඉන්නේ. මිෂන් ස්පෙෂලයිට් තමයි මෙයා. මේ තියෙන ක්‍රූ ඩ්‍රැගන් C212 මේ ෆ්‍රීඩම් කියන මේ ස්පේස් ක්‍රාෆ්ට් එක ගැන තියෙන්නේ. මේ අපි මේ ටික කතා කරමු තව ටිකකින්. මේ තියෙන මේ මිෂන් ප්‍රොෆයිල් එක අම්මට තියෙන මේ තියෙන මිෂන් ප්‍රොෆයිල් එක මේක ලොකු වේද? ලොකු වෙනවා ලොකු. මේ තියෙන්නේ මෙතන ලොන්ච් වෙනවා. මෙතන මේ මෙතනින් කැරගෙන ගිහිල්ලා මේ ඉන්ටර්නැෂනල් ස්පේස් ස්ටේෂන් එකට ඩොක් වෙනවා. ඩොක් වෙන්නේ මේ මොකේද දන්නේ සීනෙට් පෝට් එකකටද ෆෝර්ඩ් පෝට් එකකටද දන්නේ. මං ඒක නම් තාම දන්නේ නැහැ යාළුවනේ. 6 docking and pressurization. මොකේද ඩොක් වේද දන්නේ නැහැ බලන්න. යන කට්ටිය කොච්චර කල් ඉන්නවද කියලා අහනවා. යන කට්ටිය මේ මිෂන් එකේ කාලය දවස් 10යි. හරිද? දවස් 10න් එක දවසක් ලොන්ච් කරන්නයි ගිහිල්ලා ඩොක් වෙන්නයි ඉන්ටර්නැෂනල් ස්පේස් ස්ටේෂන් එකට. ඊට පස්සේ දවස් 8ක් ඒගොල්ලෝ ISS එක ඇතුලේ සැපත් දාලා ඉන්නවා. මේ ඊට පස්සේ 10 වෙනි දවස 10 වෙනි 10 වෙනි දවසනේ 10 වෙනි දවස මේ අන්ඩොකින් and ascending මේ නෙමෙයි ඩිසෙන්ට් එක ascending වෙන්නේ මේ ලොන්ච් කරාමනේ. එතකොට මුළු කාලේ දවස් 10 දවස් 10න් දවස් 8ක් තමයි. එතකොට අඩේ මේගොල්ලෝ යනවලු මෙන්න අම්මඩ මේ යනවා.
Very special moment for Peggy. But thinking about her, she actually had her first mission to space on STS-11, which launched from this very pad 39A on June 5th, 2002, just shy of 21 years ago. She would have been transported out on this very stretch of road and ridden the same set of elevators to reach the Space Shuttle Endeavour. Now today, just everything else is basically new. The suits, the rocket, obviously all of those things are new, but it's pretty fascinating to think of this throwback. And actually here's a photo of then rookie astronaut Peggy Whitson.
Wow. I love that.
That's incredible. There she is in the white room. And actually, as this crew rides out to their rocket, their commander, Peggy Whitson, wanted to share a special message with them and to each of you who have helped make today possible.
As I get ready for spaceflight, I want to say thank you to everyone who's contributed. I know there's so many of you out there that are helping to make each and every piece come together. The engineers that design things, the welders that put things together, the instructors that teach me how.
මං හිතන්නේ මේ අවුරුදු මේ සෑහෙන කාලෙකින් සෑහෙන කාලයක් තිස්සේ ස්පේස් ස්ටේෂන් එකට යනවා. මං කියන්නේ අපි තරුණ කට්ටියට අවස්ථාව දෙන්න ඕනේ. ඒ කියන්නේ මොන්නේ වැද්දෙක් වගේනේ. කොණ්ඩේ උඩවුල්. මේ මහංකු තාම දැන් සල්ලි ගෙවලත් යනවා ඒ ඇස්සේ. ගියාට කවන්නේ නැති අපේ සල්ලි නෙමෙයි. මේ
commanding this mission, and it was
අම්මට
such
සිරි
an
ඇරි සෙට්
incredible
ඇවිල්ලා
moment
තියෙනවා.
because she
හලෝ
really
බොසා
is
කාලෙකින්
one
ලයිව්
of the
ඇවිල්ලා සෙට් වුනේ.
legends of NASA, and I was just so excited to see that she was going to be flying in a SpaceX Dragon.
අවුරුදු 60ක්
So
වෙනවා.
what an
ඔව්
exciting
මේ
opportunity.
Absolutely.
මංගේ එයාට මාර එක්ස්පීරියන්ස් එකක් තියෙනවා. හැබැයි
Once again,
මේ
those live views coming to us
මේ
from
කියන්නේ මේකට
inside
දැන්
the
අර කමාන්ඩ්
Teslas
කෙනෙක් එහෙම
as
ඕනේනේ.
the
ඒ හින්දා තමයි මේ මං හිතන්නේ එයාව අරන් තියන්නේ අර කවුරු හරි එක්ස්පීරියන්ස් තියෙන එක්කෙනෙක් එහෙමත් ඕනේ හින්දා. මේ මෙතන තව එක්කෙනෙක් ඉන්නවා. එයා එයාක්‍රාෆ්ට් පයිලට් කෙනෙක්. එයා පැය 60,000 හරි 6,000ක් හරි 6,000ක් නෙවෙන්න 60,000 බලමු. අඩි පෑඩ් එකට ආවා. ආවේද? එයාක්‍රාෆ්ට් hours 8,500ක්.
structure
අඩි පෑඩ් එකට
is
ආවා.
original to
අම්මට
the
සිරි.
pad from the
ඔකට දන්නවද
shuttle and
ටෙස්ලා එකේ
Apollo days. So
මේ
it is safe to
උඩට අර
say
දොරවල් වලට
that
කියන නම්
when
මොකක්ද?
Peggy
දන්න එක්කෙනෙක්
ascends
දාන්න බෑ.
one of these elevators, that in her shuttle days she
බලමු
was
කවුද
using
දන්නේ.
the same, the
අපි
port.
උත්තරේ දන්න එක්කෙනාට දෙනවද වටිනා කුඩය?
We have Peggy Whitson and John Schaffner. They've exited their vehicles first.
This is one of my favorite moments that we have during the launch sequences. Right there it is. The lean back and, they have to. The vehicle stands so tall there on
Sequences.
top of the launch
අර අර
mount.
ඇවිල්ලා බලන රොකට් එහෙම කොච්චර
We'll probably say this throughout the broadcast.
ඒකනේ
but
අර සම්ප්‍රදායක්
They've seen the rocket before. They've been in it for dry dress. It's got to look
මේ
different
ඔයගොල්ලෝ දැකලා
on
තියෙනවද ඔය උතන
today,
ලිෆ්ට් එකේ
this day.
අර ඔයගොල්ලෝ දැකලා තියෙනවද කියලා අහනවා. මේ ෆොටෝ එකක් මම දාලා තිබ්බ එකපාරක් Facebook එකේ මේ ওই ලිෆ්ට් එකේ දැන් මේ අර බොත්තම උබන්න බෑ ගිහිල්ලා හරියට හරි ෆැල්කන් විං ඩෝස් හරියට හරි ෆැල්කන් විං ඩෝස් මේ ඇරිසෙට් මේ ඇඩ්‍රස් එක දාන්න මං කුඩේ වන්නම් ගෙදරට හරිද මේ ටෙස්ලා මොඩල් එක්ස් එකේ මේ ටෙස්ලා මේ ඉවෙන්ට් එකක් තිබ්බනේ දවස් දෙක තුනකට කලින් මම පොඩ්ඩක් බැලුවා එහෙම මෙහෙම වන්න ඕනේ මේ මං කී හිටියේ ඔය ලිෆ්ට් එකේ අර අපි ගියාම දැන් බොත්තම බණ්ඩේ වේ ඕකේ තියෙනවා මේ මොන ලෙවල් එකටද යන්න ඕනේ කියන්නේ මේ international space station එකේ මොකක් හරි ගහලා තියෙනවා මතකයි තිබ්බා.
And of course, we roll it up horizontally and then lift it to the vertical launch position, within, depending on the mission, days or hours prior to liftoff.
There you see Ali and Rihanna
Need
doing an
them at
excellent lean back for that view. See the excitement, hands clapping.
hands clapping ඔක hands clapping නෙමෙයි මිනිස්සයා මේ එයාගේ දෙවියන්
As we
වැද
mentioned before, they have rehearsed this previously in our dry dress rehearsal on Friday. They suited up.
Me?
They
එදා ස්ටාර්ෂිප් ලොන්ච් ඩේ මේ ඕබිටල් ලොන්ච් මේ ටෙස්ට් ෆ්ලයිට් එක දවසේ දාපු මේ කමෙන්ට් එක කොහොමද මට වෙඩි වගේ නේ මට සුපිරි යාන මේ පොඩ වයසක ඩයල් එක ඒ වුණාට පට්ටා සිරි කිව්වා නේද නියමෙටම දශමයටම කිව්වේ මරු යානා
an incredible moment. The day that they actually get to go to space. It's a moment that they've all trained for a very, very long time for.
Absolutely. So exciting. You see now in your screen, that's Peggy and John. I believe they're using the phone to make their phone calls before launch, or last calls.
Now, for those of you looking at the view here and wondering what those arrows are for, those arrows point the direction towards safety in the event that the crew needs to leave the area quickly. They just look down and they're able to follow those chevrons over to the escape pods. Basically, they are baskets on a zip line that allow them to leave the tower if necessary. But it's a little counterintuitive because they're walking opposite of the arrows, which of course makes sense because they're going to space, not away.
ටෙස්ටිං ටෙස්ලා බොට් එකේ හරි
Rihanna
හරි
and
හරි
Ali
මන්
have
දැක්ක වීඩියෝ එකක් දාලා
gone
තිබ්බ
to the
ටෙස්ලා
top of the
බොට්ගේ මේ
stairs, so they will have their turn to use the
ටෙස්ලා
phone
මේ රොබොට්ගේ සීන් එකක් දාලා තිබ්බනේ
for their last calls.
මට වැඩි එක බලන්න
That's a
බැරි
pretty
වුණා
cool view there. We see them, they're just in the fixed service structure tower, not, of course, is what connects the tower to the launch vehicle. We should be able to get a really great view of them as they go down the access arm, but looks like everybody's enjoying the view, as they should be.
Yeah.
And as they await their opportunity to make their final phone call.
Speaking of paths, this is the last section of their path before they ingress the
ෆ්‍රේම්
vehicle.
ඩ්‍රොප්
But
වෙනවා
Ali and Rihanna actually reported last August to Houston to start training, and this crew has 700 to 1,000 hours of training total by the time they start their operational phase of the mission. No easy task.
ෆ්‍රේම් ටිකක් ඩ්‍රොප් වෙනවා
Now, the folks that are dressed in the all black bodysuits, those are members of the SpaceX suit and closeout team. So these are the SpaceX employees that will be assisting the crew through their egress and suit leak checks. For FOD, which is foreign object debris, something that we want to avoid at all costs in the spaceflight industry. We make sure that everyone, all the the personnel in this part of the phase are preventing FOD, and that is why we see them dressed in those bunny suits like we do.
Coming down the arm now, you see here's Commander
Rap
Peggy
engine
Whitson and pilot
version
John
3
Schaffner.
එක
Taking
බ්‍රෝ
a nice
මේ
look at their rocket through the
විස්තරය
window there.
හරියටම තාම දන්නේ ඒ කියන්නේ
You know,
මේ
it's incredible,
version 3 එකේ chamber pressure එක 350ට ගියා බාර් කියලා කිව්වා. ඒගොල්ලෝ බාර් 350 මේන්ටේන් කරලා තිබ්බ තප්පර වැඩි ගාණක්. ඒ කියන්නේ Raptor 2 එකට වැඩිය. ස්ටේබල් කරලා තිබ්බා chamber pressure එක ඒ වගේම. ඒ වගේම components එනට අඩුයි කියලාත් කියලා තිබ්බා. මම මේ හොයලා මේ අරගන්න හම්බුනේ ඔච්චරයි තාම අපිට මේ මම හිතන ෆොටෝ එකක්වත් එළියට රිලීස් කරලා නැහැ මේ ඕක මට හිතෙන්නේ ඉස්සෙල්ලා මේ අන්වර්සි වෙන්න සයින් කරන.
We can see them adding their signature there to the black SpaceX logo, joining the names of the Axiom 1 crew as well as the Inspiration 4 crew.
ඒ මූනිකන් අර can you see me එකේ නළුව වගේ.
As I understand, that Sharpie is part of the protocol. You have to have that Sharpie at the ready because it's a really special moment for the crew.
Absolutely. We can see the crew members,
වගේ.
excuse me, the closeout members that
මේ
are
ටික
assisting
ෆිල්ම්
the
බැලුවා
crew
සෑහෙන.
with their ingress process. We can see that they're holding tablets. That is where they are tracking and following along with our electronic procedures, which we call EPROCs. And those EPROCs list out every single step that each person has to carry out in order to enable a successful liftoff. And of course, we have an instantaneous liftoff window today as we are going to the International Space Station. So it's really important to keep tabs on who's doing what and how much time we have left in each activity. We do build in margin into the schedule so that if one thing takes a couple minutes longer, it's okay. We build in a little bit of flexibility there. But those tablets allow the
ලයිව්
crew
එකක්
to follow
එන්නේ
along.
මේ ස්ටාර්ෂිප් ෆස්ට් ඕබිටේ මේ ෆස්ට් ඕබිටර් ටෙස්ට් ෆ්ලයිට් එක තිබ්බට පස්සේ ඊට පස්සේ ආවෙම නෑ පාට්ලරම් බිසි වුණා සා මේ ඒකෙන් හොඳටම ඒක හොඳටම කරපු හින්දා ගොඩක් කාලෙකට ඇති වුණා ඒක මේ ඉතින් එහෙම ලොකු සීන් එකක් තිබ්බෙත් නෑ මේ ලොකු සීන් ගොඩක් තිබ්බා මම ඒවට කන්ටෙන්ට් වීඩියෝස් මේ කන්ටෙන්ට් මේ රෙකෝඩඩ් කන්ටෙන්ට් දාලා තියෙන්නේ channel එකේ මේ ඒව ගිහිල්ලා බලන්න මේ F22 Raptor ගැන වීඩියෝ එකක් දැම්ම ඔන්න ඒකත් හොඳටම කරලා තිබ්බා මේ ඊට පස්සේ දාපු වීඩියෝස් දෙක තුනක්ම පොඩ්ඩක් ගිහිල්ලා තිබ්බා මෙන්න නැග්ග පුතේ ෆ්ලයිට් එකට
The seats that they are sitting in utilize a 5-point safety harness, so it's a little bit more advanced
ඒගොල්ලෝ
than
ඉස්සල්ලාම ගහන්නේ
the
කකුලට
seatbelt
ප්‍රෙෂර්
that
එක.
we have in our automobiles here on
කකුලට
Earth.
නෙමෙයි ගහන්නේ මේ. ඕගොල්ලෝ පේනවද දන්නේ මේ ඒගොල්ලොන්ගේ
John and Peggy.
ස්පේස්
in
සූට්
the
එකේ
vehicle.
තියෙනවා අර මේ ස්පේස් මේ ඩ්‍රැගන්
Fun
ස්පේස්
little note
ක්‍රාෆ්ට්
about
එකෙන්
John
ආපු මේ
Schaffner. He's
ප්‍රෙෂර්
going to be the first Alaskan to fly to space. He was born in
සිස්ටම් එකක්
Fairbanks,
තියෙනවා ඒක
Alaska.
කනෙක්ට් කරන්න ඕනේ ස්පේස් සූට් එකට
spent
ඊට
a
පස්සේ
lot of
ඒක
time
ඒක
there
හරහා
from
තමයි
my
මේ අර
biology
ස්පේස් සූට්
background.
එක
And
ලොන්ච්
it's
එක
an
වෙලාදී
extreme
සහ අර
environment.
ස්පේස්
So just
ස්ටේෂන් එකට
being from
යනකම්
Alaska, I
ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ
feel
අර
like it's
ස්පේස්
training
සූට් එකේ
enough
ප්‍රෙෂර් එක
to prepare
මේන්ටේන්
for
කරන්නේ
space.
ඒ
Alaska is
ලයින් එක
cold,
හරහා
space is
ඒ
cold.
ලයින් එක
There
තමයි
you
ආපු
go.
ගමන් ස්පේස් සූට් එකට කනෙක්ට් කළේ
We can see there
මේ
our
ඔයගොල්ලෝ
mission
කියනවා
specialist Rayana
සමහරලාට
Barnawi
තාමත්
and Ali
ගහගෙන ඉන්නවා
Al-Karni still finishing
එළියේ
up the final steps before walking down the crew access arm. They are working with the SpaceX closeout team members to do the final checks and of course some waves. Now entering that crew access arm and making their way down to Dragon Freedom.
Miles and waves. All right, thumbs up from the KSA mission specialists, Rihanna Barnawi and Ali Al-Karni, as they enter the white room and likely go straight to signing that SpaceX logo next to the AX-1 crew and joining their crewmate signatures. It's really incredible for
ගුණපුස
this new era of space travel to be forming, where we're going to have sovereign nation representation on that signature wall. It's just really exciting to see the evolution and change of things here as we grow commercial spaceflight.
Absolutely. Space for all.
Yeah. You mentioned this closeout crew. It's really, as Peggy said in that send-off video too, it's really
Hello,
phenomenal to think
Sudaras.
about
Hi,
the size
hi.
of these teams and every pair of hands that gets put on these mission preparations and to make this crew perform their mission successfully.
මේගොල්ලොන්ට තව
It's
දිග්ග
incredible to think about
බිත්තියක්
all those
හදන්න වෙයි
people
හැබැයි ළඟදී
involved.
මෙහෙම
It's
සයින්
just,
කරන විදිහට
it's
ගියොත්
as though they're not
මදි වෙනවා
traveling just for
බිත්ති
themselves or even their countries, but like you said, it's space for all. They're traveling for all of humanity.
Once again, we can see the tablets being utilized for the closeout team members to
Oh, the
follow
ninja
along
set
with
tech.
the procedures step by step. They're also marking
Ninja.
off when a step is completed and essentially just keeping track of what is remaining, what open work remains. We can see here they're going through and doing the final zip ups of the gloves. You know, for comfort reasons, excuse me, for comfort reasons, we don't make them do final suit up, I should say final suit up with all the zippers and whatnot, so that they can still be comfortable as they're riding up and making their phone calls. And this is the final check to ensure that everything is locked in place with those zippers and fasteners. We can see now that pilot John Schaffner on the left and Commander Peggy Whitson on the right are in their seats, getting those final strap in with that seatbelt. We can see that they have tablets on their legs, which allow them to also follow along with the same procedures step by step.
Goes Ali Al-Karni, ingressing the vehicle with some
Ali
words of
Al-Karni
encouragement
නගිනවා
from his crewmate
කොට් එකට
Rayana Barnawi, and as she initiates her ingress.
So as they're stepping through this side hatch, it's important to note that they won't go through this side hatch again until they're back on Earth. When they are ingressing and egressing the International Space Station, we actually use the forward hatch located at the top of the Dragon spacecraft to dock with the International Space Station. So the next time that they go through this side hatch will be when they are done and they are on a recovery vessel in either the Gulf or Atlantic Ocean.
Okay, we're getting our first looks of our full crew seated inside the Dragon. On the far left, you have Rayana Barnawi, followed by John Schaffner, Peggy Whitson, and Ali Al-Karni. Mission specialists sitting on the far left and the far right. pilot John Schaffner on the left in the middle, and Peggy Whitson, commander, on that right
ඔක
middle
තමයි ෂොට්
seat.
එක.
Great side-by-side shot of the rocket Dragon capsule on the left, crew on the right.
We can see there, in addition to the tablets that the crew uses to follow along with everything that's going on, they also, I just love this view. This is coming to us from our drone that is circling pad 39A. You can really appreciate, one, what a beautiful day to go to space. I love it whenever we can see this coastline come into view. But yeah, just a beautiful pad shot of 39A. Of course, this is where many of the shuttle missions launched from, but this is also the Apollo 11 launch site as well. So it's amazing to see this new era of space flight continuing from a site that is so historic and carries a lot of good memories for many people. As you mentioned before, Peggy Whitson having flown from this pad herself on a shuttle mission. So I just think that's so amazing that we're able to continue spaceflight from such an important piece of ground.
Absolutely. And in thinking about all of the science that's going to be performed on this AX-2 mission, it made me look at the calendar and actually see that Space Lab was launched from this same pad 50 years ago to this year, so 1973. And that was, of course, a huge progressive step in doing scientific research in space. So we have this really cool full circle moment where we're initiating a big step in commercial spaceflight that's really going to progress the research that's done in low Earth orbit, tying it back to the same pad where Peggy launched, and even before that where Skylab, one of our influential science components of space exploration, was launched from as well. Really cool history, like you're saying.
This here an exterior view of the Crew Access Arm and Dragon Freedom. Well, today we are carrying 4 people to the space station. Dragon can actually seat up to 7. The additional 3 crew members would be located basically under where the 4 seats that we use as we see today in lieu of cargo. So underneath the astronauts, as we see now, there is actually cargo located underneath them. Within that cargo will be things that they use like food and water, as well as the clothes that they will get to change into once they are able to take off or doff their spacesuits. Once they reach orbit, they'll be able to take off the spacesuits and change into other clothes and basically sleep in that while they make their way to the International Space Station. And we can see here the tablets that they follow along with the procedures on the left leg, but on the right leg, we see another rectangular shape. That is the connection point for the umbilical. And that is where the basically the interface is for flowing, again, some more of that cooled nitrox, which is a nitrogen-oxygen mixture. That air gets flowed into the suits to help keep them comfortable. It's the same stuff that scuba divers use in their breathing tanks. The umbilical is also what connects the electrical and communication and avionics. So that's how we basically get telemetry to and from the suit, and in addition to those communication packages.
කියන්නේ මේ
Now the seats that they are sitting in are custom sized.
අර
for
කකුලට
each
ගහලා තියෙන
astronaut.
ජොයින්ට් එක තියෙන්නේ. මේ කකුලට ගහලා තියෙන ජොයින්ට් එක කිව්වේ මේ කකුලට ගහලා තියෙන ජොයින්ට් එක තමයි. ඒ කළු පාට ඔය කොටුවක් වගේක් තියෙන ඔයගොල්ලන්ට පේනවද මේ මෙතන? මෙන්න මේක. අන්න ඒකට දාලා තියෙන්නේ නයිට්‍රජන් සහ ඔක්සිජන් වල මේ මික්ස් එකක් නයිට්‍රොක්ස් කියලා. ඒක තමයි ස්පේස් සූට් එකට ගිහිල් ඒ කියන්නේ ඩ්‍රැගන් ස්පේස් ක්‍රාෆ්ට් එකේ ගබඩා කරලා තියෙන මේ නයිට්‍රොක්ස් මික්ස් එක අර ලයින්ස් දෙකේ ඇවිල්ලා ඔය කළු පාට කොටුව ඇතුලෙන් ස්පේස් සූට් එකට යනවා. ස්පේස් සූට් එකට ගිහිල්ලා ස්පේස් සූට් එක දිගේ එක ගමන් කරලා ඒ කියන්නේ ඒක හදලා තියෙන්නේ මේ ඇස්ට්‍රොනොට් අභ්‍යවකාශගාමියාට මේ කම්ෆර්ටබල් වෙන්න. මේ නිකන් කූල් වෙලා නිකන් පොඩ්ඩක් නිකන් ප්‍රෙෂර් එක එහෙම ගොඩක් දැනෙන්නේ නැති වෙන ප්‍රෙෂර් එක මේන්ටේන් කරලා ඒකට තමයි ඒක හදලා තියෙන්නේ.
They go through, the motions of executing, something while they're on orbit, making sure that everything is super
Hi
comfortable
boss,
and nothing
idea tech.
is rubbing in the wrong places.
Since the beginning of the space race in the 1960s, a custom patch has been used to represent and identify
මේ
individual
ඔයගොල්ලෝ ඔක්කොම
missions
ගිහිල්ලා මගේ
and
අද
their
දාපු
crew.
වීඩියෝ බලන්න.
It is also a long-held
ඒක
custom that the crew
ලස්සන එඩිට්
influence or
කරන්න මම
outright
ගොඩක්
design their
වෙලා
own
ගියා
patch, injecting it with
ඒක බලන්න
symbolism
කියන්නේ
and
මෙච්චර.
personal elements to commemorate their journey. This crew has continued this long-standing tradition with their official AX2 mission patch. Take a look. The AX2 mission patch highlights the
අම්මට
beauty
සිරි
of
Axiom
space,
2 mission
hope for the
patch එක
future,
පට්ට
and the
ලස්සනයි
important
නේ.
role of the ISS to unite the best
මම ආසයි මේ
aspects of
Axiom
humanity.
Axiom
Shown
නෙමෙයි මේ
prominently are
mission
the
patch
mission
එකතු
name
කරන්න මේ
AX2,
ගන්න
the
තරන්නේ.
family names of the crew members, and the flags of
මේ
the
ඔය
United
patch
States
තියෙනවා
and the Kingdom of
අර
Saudi
මේ
Arabia.
බාල දක්ෂ කාලේ අපි අර මෙහෙම ගහන්නේ අර මෙතන මේ වතුර උණු කරන්න දන්නවට පැච් එකක් ගහනවා බයිසිකල් පදින්න දන්නවට අන්න ඒ වගේ පැච් ඔය තියෙන්නේ අර ඒ වගේ රෙදි වලින් මහව පැච් තියෙනවා ඔය NASA ස්පේස් ෆ්ලයිට් එකෙන් විකුණන්න තියෙනවා ඒව එකතු කරන්න පුළුවන් ඉතින් ඕනේ ආසෙක් කෙනෙක්.
The arched path leading from the Earth to space is colored lavender, which is a culturally significant in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, symbolizing hospitality. That arched path and color also reflect KSA's desire to be part of the space sector and position itself as a contributor to the global space community. Then, naturally, the space station is central to the image as the destination of this crew, while Earth is featured with prominent horizon lines symbolizing optimism, hope, and inspiration. Just as you see this mission patch worn by the crew on their flight suits, this patch is currently adorning the walls of Axiom Space's Mission Control in Houston and is placed in a position of honor everywhere
Mission
this crew
Control
is
Center
being supported
Axiom
for
වල
the
තියෙන.
duration of their mission.
Houston Texas වල තියෙන. මම ආස මොන්න ඔය පාට් එක.
You
Mission
can see
Control
live
Center.
views there inside of
ඔය SpaceX
Dragon
එකේ Mission
Freedom.
Control Center එක දැක්කොත්
Now,
දුවන
this capsule that they are flying in is a reused capsule. It
Mission
has been to
Controllers නම්
space
යායට
before.
ඉන්නේ යායට. ගබඩා කරලා
Additionally,
තියෙන.
Falcon 9 is also a reusable vehicle. It's the world's first orbital class reusable rocket. And while today marks the first flight for this rocket, it will be the second flight for the Dragon spacecraft. Reusability is a big deal, not just for us at SpaceX, but also for the future of spaceflight. Reusing hardware, similar to how airlines reuse aircraft,
Starship
allows
එකේ
us to
මේ Starship ඩිපාර්ට්මන්ට් එකේ ප්‍රෙසිඩන්ට් විදිහට මේ අලුත් එක්කෙනෙක් මේ අලුත් ලේඩි කෙනෙක් කරන් තිබ්බා මේ NASA එකේ වැඩ කරපු ගිය සති මේ එයා කෙලින්ම රිපෝට් කරන්න ඕනේ SpaceX එකේ ප්‍රෙසිඩන්ට් ගුවෙන් ෂොට්ටල්ට පට්ට නාකි අවුලක් නෑ ඉතින් එක්ස්පීරියන්ස් තමයි ගොඩක් බලපාන ඔය වගේ වැඩවලට දැන් ගුවෙන් ෂොට්ටල් නම් මම හිතන්නේ සෑහෙන කාලයක් SpaceX එකේ වැඩ කරන පටන් ගත්ත දවසට ඉඳලා
pretty awesome. As you've heard me mention before, the Dragon capsule flying today, named Freedom, will be making its second trip to space. It previously supported the NASA Crew 4 mission in April 2022, so just over a year ago. Now, as for our launch vehicle, the Falcon 9 rocket has completed 224 total launches, and 70% of those have been on reflown rockets. The booster supporting today's mission will be lifting off for the first time, as you might be able to tell by the fact that that first stage is shiny and white. The way that I often, tell people is if the paint matches the second stage, it's a new rocket. Now, speaking of firsts, today marks the first time that we're landing Falcon 9 back on land for a crew mission. Previous crew missions landed on a drone ship out in the Atlantic Ocean. So we actually see a live view now of LZ-1. That is the intended landing destination for the booster today. Landing back on land has a lot of benefits. It eliminates the need for our recovery team to be stationed out at sea for
NASA
days.
ස්පේස් ෆ්ලයිට්
and
එකේ අනිත්
improves
ලයිව්
our
එක මොකක්ද කියලා දන්නවද? මුඩි NASA recovery team එකද ස්පේස් recovery team එක? ලයිව් කීයක් තියෙනවද අම්බෝ ලයිව් මේක දැන් පටන් ගන්න මේක සින්දුව තමයි ආතරල
Propulsion continues to be warm enough. All right, the chamber pressure looks good. Declination.
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed.
We rise together back to the moon and beyond.
The methane will be igniting the flare, correct?
All right, folks, let's see. I see the audio bar jumping. That's how professional we are here at NASA Space Flight's live stream auxiliary command right now. There is another live stream happening, as you may be aware. But Alicia and I are here to do this week's NSF Live.
Bro, interpret කෙනෙක් දාලා. පල්ලේ.
Doing great. How are
මොම්බලෝ කවුද මේ මොකක්ද කරන්න කිය?
Assume that the audience can hear you. Chat, can y'all hear Alicia there as well?
5x5s. Give us some 5x5s.
It looks like we've got lots of 5x5s in chat over there. Our production team is so small, we actually ask our viewers to help us out with the broadcast. So as always, thank y'all for getting us started here. Also special for today, you'll see on all the windows, all the scenes here, we've got ASL interpretation, increasing the access for folks who can enjoy and participate in this content. So massive thanks to the ASL interpretation team for supporting us. I'm going to have to remember to take breaths and talk more slowly. Alicia, what's our topic today?
Yeah, so we are talking about crew capsule recovery. Really, actually, a really great topic for us to be talking about this year in particular, because for those of you who aren't familiar, the Intrepid Museum is actually housed inside of course, the former USS Intrepid, which is celebrating its 80th commissioning anniversary this year. So it was constructed in 1943. It served during World War II, the Cold War, the Vietnam War. Also, though, it picked up 2 space capsules during the space race. So what a perfect topic for us to be covering today. In this picture, actually, you can see the recovery from the Gemini mission, Gemini 3. The first one we did was actually Scott Carpenter. So it was the Mercury Aurora 7 capsule in 1962. In May, actually, just in a couple of days, we'll be celebrating that anniversary.
That's an archive photo for ants, Alicia. Hang on, I'll get it. There we go.
So that particular mission, yeah, he was in space for, it's early space days, only about 5 hours. And actually, funny enough, he got a little distracted. There's some kind of a fun story about that where we're not really sure what happened, but he ended up hitting his reentry thrusters about 2 seconds too late and came in about 250 miles off course. So, of course, back then they were looking for him in a specific spot. He wasn't there. They thought we might have lost him. Mass chaos.
මේක පොඩ්ඩක් අපි නවත්තමු නේ අද මේක වань නෙවෙයි අපි ආවේ මෙන්න මේක වань
to top off gas pressure in the
Kevin
helium supply that's used to repressurize first and second stages as we head to space. The attitude control system, gas supplies, the landing leg supplies. We're at pressure. We just top it off a little bit as we continue through the countdown. Other than that, nothing significant on the Falcon 9 right now. Everybody's mostly just looking over the data, watching their systems. Our next major activity on Falcon 9 will actually occur at about T-minus 1 hour and 10 minutes. That's when we're going to begin to bleed in the fuel into the Merlin engine chambers, actually into the jacket where it's used to cool the nozzles as we head out into space. So that'll be our next major activity. We have also done flight termination system checkouts a couple hours ago. Everything looks good there. And the view you can see right now at 39A, Falcon 9, fairly quiet at the moment. Dragon also having the more activity as the crew has ingressed And right now we're getting ready to begin checks between Dragon and the ground.
We're now T-minus 2 hours, 30 minutes, and 42 seconds until liftoff of Axiom 2. Heading to the International Space Station, we have a T0 time of 5:37 p.m. Eastern Time, 2:37 p.m. Pacific Time. As John mentioned, and as you can see on screen, weather's cooperating at the moment. We can see the exterior of the capsule there. This is actually a great shot because not only can you see the service section, which is where the crew is, you can also see another great view of the trunk. This is where we are able to put unpressurized cargo, and that trunk is the part that will be jettisoned before the crew actually return to Earth. Great view coming to us from our helicopter circling the pad. You can also see below the trunk the white second stage, below that the black inner stage where we have the grid fins attached, and then below that the white first stage.
White first stage, it was a black inner stage. It was
we are standing by for communications checks with the crew.
It was a dragon මේ ප්‍රපර්ෂන් පැත්ත තියෙන බ්ලැක් ස්ටේජ් එක ඊට පස්සේ නැවතත් වයිට් ඩ්‍රැගන් ස්පේස් කැප්සූල් එක.
After we get through comm checks, we will perform leak.
කට්ටිය ප්‍රශ්න තියෙනවා නම් අහන්න. මන් දන්නෙත් නැහැ හැබැයි. නෑ මොන හරි ප්‍රශ්න තියෙනවා නම් අහන්න. මං කියන්න. දන්නවා නම් කියනවා.
That it can hold that pressure over a period of time. In the event of an egress scenario, or excuse me, not egress, of a launch.
නම්මට වෙසිද ඊමේල් එක හදාගත්තලු අම්මෝ මගේ ලයිව් වන්න මම ඊමේල් හැදුවද රත්තරන් යාළුවේ.
While the crew return to Earth. Once those suit leak checks are complete, the closeout team will then close the side hatch. As I mentioned before, the side hatch is the door that they use to go in and out of the capsule while they are on Earth. The hatch that they use while they are on station is actually the forward hatch, which is located under the nose cone, which you can distinguish there at the very top of the Dragon capsule, the pointy part that has that diagonal line that indicates where the nose cone is. And that will rotate back. It'll open up and expose the forward hatch. And that's what the Dragon capsule uses to autonomously dock with the International Space Station. So once that side hatch is closed by the closeout team here on the ground,
SpaceX Dragon, comm check from feet 2.
Loud and clear, Peggy, from SpaceX. How me?
We have you loud and clear.
What the?
It sounds like these comm checks.
All right, good afternoon. Please let us know when you get to step 1.3 and are ready for umbilical comm checks.
Welcome.
මේ අර ඇක්සියෝමි ස්පේස් එකයි SpaceX එක අතර කමියුනිකේෂන් හදාගත්තා.
And SpaceX Dragon, we're at step 1.3, ready for a comm check.
යහෝ මයික් එක කටේ දාන්න කතා කරන්නේ ඇහෙන්නේ.
SpaceX copies. Stand by for umbilical comm checks.
හරි SpaceX එකෙන් කියන්නේ හොඳට ඇහෙනවා.
Great view of the Axiom 2 crew there as we are standing by for those comm checks.
මම හිතන්නේ මේගොල්ලෝ මේ කැප්සූල් එක ඇතුළේ ගහලා තියෙන කැමරාවටම කිලෝ ගාණක් ගිහිල්ලාද? කිලෝ නෑ කිලෝ එකක් විතර ගිහිල්ලා තියෙයි. සාමාන්‍යයෙන් GoPro එකක් ග්‍රෑම් 200ක් විතර මරන්නේ. Communication checks are in progress.
Commander, pilot, MS1, MS2, comm check.
Commander has you loud and clear.
Pilot, loud and clear. One, loud and clear.
MS2, loud and clear.
And core, loud and clear. Umbilical comm check complete. Please report when ready for seat rotation.
සීට් එක රොටේට් කරන්න යන්නේ පුතේ. Yeah.
All right, all good news there. All those comm checks checked out, and we are now.
SpaceX Dragon, we are ready for seat rotation.
We are ready for seat rotation.
SpaceX copies.
පුළුවන්
Full
නම් කියන්න
report when
ඔක්කොම
initiating.
දුස්සන්න කියලා. සීට් එක කරකවන්න
As the
යන්නේ.
name indicates, these seats are going to
ඒගොල්ලෝ ඉන්නේ
rotate back
අපි ඉඳගෙන ඉන්නවා වගේ.
into the launch
හැබැයි
position.
ලොන්ච් එක සිද්ධ වෙන වෙලාවට ඒගොල්ලෝ එහෙම උඩ බලාගෙන ඉන්න.
Will enable the crew to have easier access to those crew displays located above their heads.
සීට් එක උඩ රොටේට් කරන්න යන්නේ.
Dragon SpaceX initiating seat rotation.
Initiate seat rotation.
Dragon copies.
We can see those seats now rotating back into the launch position.
අඩෝ. මේ සල්ලි එකතු කරන්න ඕනේ දැම්ම ටිකට් එකක් ගන්න.
This moment must feel like that moment on a roller coaster when you're in position to go.
හොඳට යන්න සීට් එක කැරකිව්වා.
We are at T-minus
Dragon
2 hours.
SpaceX, seats are in the launch position.
Dragon copies.
Hey, comm there confirming that the seat rotation has been completed. We are at T-minus 2 hours and 22 minutes and 6 seconds from liftoff of the AX-2 mission from Kennedy Space Center in Florida, carrying 4 Axiom astronauts, Peggy Whitson, John Schaffner, Ali Al-Karni, and Rihanna Barnall aboard the Crew Dragon spacecraft. It's been a very exciting day so far. The crew shifted their sleep cycle to match that of the international.
කළු පාට ගහලා තියෙන සුදු පාට මොකද කියන්නේ ඒකට ලොන්ච් පැඩ් එකෙන් ගහලා තියෙන මේ ඔකට කියන්නේ වයිට් රූම් එක කියලා. ඕක දැන් ගැලවිලා ඉවත් වෙනවා.
Teams on the ground. Their seats have rotated from upright to their reclined launch position, which allows them to see and access the display panels there above their head. Up next will be the leak checks to make sure their spacesuits are in proper working condition before liftoff and to do final inspection of the spacecraft. So at this point in time, we're going to stand by, await for those suit checks. We expect them to happen here in the next couple of minutes. After those are complete, the closeout team will be closing the side hatch for flight. That's one of the key.
Dragon SpaceX, you are go for Section 2 suit leak check preparation.
Copy, go Section 2, suit leak check preparation.
Once the suit leak checks are complete and the Closeout team closes the side hatch for flight. Things will start moving a lot quicker. The opportunity for going back and rechecking, everything is still, we're able to do that before the side hatch closes. So that's why we wait to get through the comm checks, the suit leak checks, the seat rotation. We wait to close the side hatch until all of those are complete, so that in the event that, for example, if a zipper isn't quite in place, one of the closeout team members can re-enter the capsule, help the crew member get that into place and re-perform the suit leak check, or whatever it might be. Now, after we get that side hatch closed, the closeout team will depart the pad, and then around T-minus 1 hour and 30 minutes, we'll do launch escape system checks. And then we fast forward to T-minus 42 minutes, and things really start happening in rapid succession.
SpaceX Dragon, tariff complete. We're ready for leak check.
Dragon copies and concurs. You are go for Section 3 suit leak check.
Copy. Go for Section 3 suit leak check.
All right, so that communication back and forth there between Commander Peggy Whitson and SpaceX Core, or Crew Operations and Resource Engineer, on that console today is Arthur Berrialt. That is the... That back and forth, just confirming that the crew is ready to go to march into that next step, which, as they said, would be the suit leak checks. Essentially, we inflate the suits to a certain pressure for a couple of minutes, and we monitor that pressure level during that time to basically ensure and check that we're not losing any pressure. If we see a pressure loss, that's an indication that something isn't quite fitting right. Maybe there's a little bit of FOD in the visor, so it's not closing completely, or the zipper might not be zipped up completely. So one of the closeout team members will go in and help resolve whatever is causing that. And then they, in that case, would re-perform the suit leak check. But when we did a dress rehearsal on Friday, we got to this step, and they breezed right through it.
Yeah.
So you can actually kind of see the crew there just resting pretty comfortably while these leak checks are underway. So suit leak checks are now underway. We're just holding that pressure and monitoring that pressure level in all 4 suits to ensure that there's no leakage. For those of you that have just recently joined us, we have Mission Specialist Rayana Barnawi on the left, the far left seat. That is seat number 4. And seat number 3 is Pilot John Schaffner. Next to him, Commander Peggy Whitson. And then on the far right, in seat number 1, Ali Al-Karni. We can see the SpaceX closeout team there preparing for the side hatch closure. But like I said, we won't complete that until we have confirmation of 4 good suit leak checks.
ස්පේස් සූට් අතර ඉස්සෙල්ලාම චෙක් කරලා ඉන්න ඕනේ ලූ හරියටම 100%ක් හැච් එක ක්ලෝස් කරන්න. හැච් එක ක්ලෝස් කරන එකත් ඉතින් සිම්පල් නෑ. කොච්චර දැන් රොකට් එක ලොන්ච් එකේදී පොඩ්ඩක් හරි ඇතුළට ප්‍රෙෂර් එක ඒරෝඩයිනමික්ස් වලින් ගියොත් එහෙම කුඩුනේ. ඒ හින්දා ඔය ඔක්කොම අර
You could see them inspecting with the light. You really want to go over that.
SpaceX Dragon, we see 4 good suits.
SpaceX copies and concurs. 4 good suits. At this time, closeout team will perform final steps in preparation for side hatch closure. Proceed to section 4, side hatch close, and report when ready to close hatch.
Wilco for Dragon.
All right, good news there. We have 4 good suit leak checks. Closeout team now preparing to close the side hatch. Duke, as you mentioned, yeah, they are really inspecting that side hatch to ensure that we get a good seal there. Very similar to the suit leak checks that we just performed, we will do a leak check on that side hatch where we inflate the seal around the hatch. Again, to a certain pressure for a certain amount of time. We monitor that pressure for any decay or pressure loss. And
SpaceX Dragon, we are ready for the closeout team to close the hatch.
SpaceX copies.
I think that's a very polite way of saying it's time for them to go so we can go to space. As I mentioned before, the primary voice that we hear communicating with the crew is the SpaceX Core, which stands for Crew Operations Resource Engineer. That person on console, while it's not the same individual through all phases of flight, but that seat is there and is filled by different individuals throughout the mission. And that is the primary communication to the crew. That person is responsible for updating them on statuses and confirming with the crew that they are ready to proceed to the next step, as we've been hearing them that back and forth this morning. Or I should say this afternoon now at this point. Once we get the side hatch closed, we can see that there's still a closeout team member there under their feet, kind of in that cargo location. It's kind of hard to visualize, but if you want to compare it between the view on the left and the view on the right-hand side, that closeout team member.
Dragon SpaceX, ComCheck over ground stations.
Dragon has you loud and clear over ground station.
Core loud and clear. Ground station ComCheck complete. Stand by for TDRS ComCheck.
Should be just a few minutes from side hatch closing, and until then, we still have a good view of the crew in the capsule with one of the closeout crew members in the lower part of the screen there. You see them working on their tablets that the crew has. They each have one. Nice view of the Dragon capsule on your left, and some great weather out there.
We can see that final closeout crew member making the last preparations and now popping out. So they have now egressed and are back in that white room. As I was saying before, it's kind of hard to visualize if you've never been inside the Dragon capsule, kind of the orientation of where the viewpoint is to the right. Imagine that the crew tablet that we see Peggy and John referencing and working off of is kind of around where those 2 dots are on the left-hand side of your screen, those 2 dots on the exterior of the Dragon capsule. You can kind of imagine if you were to draw a line between those 2 dots, that's roughly where the crew display panels are. And then the crew are essentially laying on their backs, or kind of on their backs, not completely, but they're laying on their backs underneath that. So when we saw that closeout team member there under their feet, if you imagine somebody kind of working in the area.
Dragon, SpaceX, Comcheck, over Tidris.
Dragon has you loud and clear. Over Tidris.
Core, loud and clear. Tidris Comcheck complete. Stand by for Comchecks with DC, MD, and LD in the launch configuration.
Standing by.
Dragon, this is DC on countdown 1. Comcheck.
DC, we have you loud and clear.
DC, loud and clear. Stand by for Comchecks with MD.
Dragon, MD on countdown 1. Comcheck.
MD, we have you loud and clear on countdown 1.
MD, loud and clear. Stand by for Comcheck over Dragon to ground. Dragon, MD on Dragon to ground. Comcheck.
MD on Dragon to ground, we have you loud and clear.
MD, loud and clear. Stand by for Comchecks with LD.
මේගොල්ලෝ මේ සීක්වෙන්සර්ස් එක කනෙක්ෂන්ස් හරියට වැඩ කරනවද කියලා චෙක් කරන්න. ඔය LD MD කියන්නේ ඔය avionics පැත්තේ තියෙන සීන් ටික.
LD is you loud and clear as well. Stand by
මොන දේ තිබ්බත් තරන්නේ නැහැ කමියුනිකේෂන් හරියට නැත්තම්. ඒක චෙක් කරනවා.
Dragon, LD, Dragon to ground 1, Comcheck.
ඒක දැක්ක. Dragon එකෙන් ground system එකට communication හරියටම තියෙනවා කියලා.
LD also has you loud and clear.
Dragon, SpaceX, launch configuration, Comchecks complete.
Dragon copies.
තාම head check close කරේ නෑ මම හිතන්නේ. මේක බලන්න head check close කරන්න බලන් ඉන්න. site එක. Nice view.
All right, so we're finishing up with those comm checks. And I want to point out for those that might be tuning in for the first time or might not be familiar with the structure of those comm checks, that they are actually important. They do mean something. So when we hear, for example, we heard Dragon MD on countdown 1. That is a structure basically saying, hey, who they are calling. So the mission director or MD was hailing the Dragon capsule. So they say Dragon MD, then to identify who is hailing them, and then on the countdown net in which they are, or excuse me, and then the communication net that the loop that they are speaking from. And that's important whenever you have multiple loops and you want to know who's talking where. So in that instance, we heard, the mission director, who for today is Ken Gamerick.
මොකද්ද දන්න කරලා දින්න MD LD මේ LCLS iOS BMICH කියලා තියන්නේ මේ අර මේක crew members ලා හතර දෙනාගේ මේ communication channel check කරලා තියෙන්නේ. ඒ කියන්නේ මේ මම මේක කිව්වත් කාටද ඇහෙන්නේ එහෙම මොකක් කර සීන් එකක් තමයි check කරලා තියෙන්නේ. ඊට පස්සේ මේක මට ඇහෙනවා කියලා Dragon එකෙන් confirmation එකක් එනවා. ඊට පස්සේ ඒ දෙක combine කරලා එතන මේ combination එකක් හදනවා. ඊට පස්සේ ආයේ අහනවා කාටද මේක ඇහෙන්නේ එහෙම මොකක් කර channel scene එකක් හදලා තියෙන්නේ.
Side hatch very carefully for any foreign object debris, which in the aerospace world is known as FOD, F-O-D. And we can see them there just doing their final team checks. You can see the crew there on the right-hand side of your screen following along with the procedures. They do not have games on their tablets, so that's a question I sometimes get. The tablets, as well as the crew display above John and Peggy's head, allows the crew to stay informed on what is currently happening as well as what will be upcoming. So as we said before, we should be wrapping up those communication checks, and then we will get the go to proceed with side hatch closure.
දෙනෙක් බලන් ඉන්නවා මගේ live එක මේ මහරෑ හැරගෙන ඉන්නවනේ. නිසාචර ජනතාව අපිනේ. රෑට වැඩ ගන්න ලේසි.
To responding, you could have
ඉන්න කට්ටිය මේ මොනවයි කියන්නකෝ අනේ කම්මැලි. බලාගෙන ඉන්න කට්ටිය.
soft, but clear and or crisp in the ear, and we want everybody to be able to hear it. So that's why you hear them say loud and clear, because that's basically confirming the volume as well as the crispness of the audio that is being received. Now, in the event that something was not loud and clear, we would be able to tweak it, perhaps the volume levels on the ground side and how they're being fed into the astronauts' ears, as they do have basically custom fit earbuds in their ears for those communication purposes. Some claps and waves. I have a feeling the closeout team is saying goodbye to the crew.
Yep.
Dragon SpaceX. Closeout team is taking final steps in preparation for side hatch closure. Stand by for transition to pad hatch closed. Ensure all items are secure from now through launch.
Copy. Closeout teams performing the final actions. We have secure.
නින්දයයි වගේ. ඔව් එහෙම කියොත් නම් නින්දයයි තමයි. තව පැය දෙකයි කියන්නේ කොහොමද තව ලොන්ච් එකට විනාඩි 45ක් විතර තියෙද්දි කොහොමද පොඩ රත් වෙලා යනවා.
As we
එතකොට ඔක්සිජන් ලෝඩ් කරලා ඔක්කොම නිකන් හැච් එකත් ගිහිල්ලා හතර දෙනා තනියෙන් ඉද්දි කොහොමද නින්දයයි.
Close the side hatch.
And hatch close කරනවා.
Once again, this room is environmentally controlled, so it helps keep out humidity, insects, which would be considered FOD, and ultimately just help keep that environment clean.
අනිවාර්යෙන් ඇහැරිලා මට සිරේ අපි ඇහැරලා ඉන්න තන මේ ඇයිතින් ඇය 10ක වෙනසක් කොහෙද තියෙනවනේ ඇමරිකාවේ මෙහි උන් මෙහෙ උදේ රොකට් එකක් දිදී අපිට පාන්දර තමයි උදේ නෙමෙයි සාමාන්‍ය ඒගොල්ලන්ට දවල් කියන්නේ අපිට පාන්දර අනිවාර්යෙන් ඒගොල්ලෝ දවල්ට ඒගොල්ලෝ රැට සමහර දවස්වලට රොකට් එකක් මේ ලොන්ච් කරොත් එහෙම අපිට ආතල් වෙලාවක බැලුව හැකි නැත්තම් ගොඩක් වෙලා මේ පාන්දර තමයි මම ලයිව් කරන්නේ මාණ්ඩු මම ලයිව් එකට ගිහලා ගොඩක් ඒවා රැ කරලා තියෙනවා.
The seal around the side hatch. And as we mentioned before, very similar to the suit leak checks that are performed, that the seal will be inflated to a pressure that will be monitored over a few minutes, and basically monitoring to ensure that there is no loss of pressure, or also known as pressure decay. And if we did see a loss in pressure during this leak check, it would be an indication that
Dragon SpaceX closeout team has secured the side hatch and has started the side hatch leak check per 4.3.
Side hatch එක close කරලා
Dragon copy. We'll follow along.
Side hatch එක close
So if we
කරලා
were to pressure loss during this leak check, it would be an indication that something with the seal isn't sitting quite right, in which case the closeout team would be able to reopen the hatch, wipe it down, inspect it. Of course, whenever we are helping the crew, or rather the reason that we help the reason we help the crew get into or ingress the capsule is not only to help make sure that they don't injure themselves or they don't injure their suit. It's also to ensure that they don't accidentally bump that side hatch during that ingress process. We want to make sure that that everything is able to really keep that seal. For that reason, we actually put protective fixturing that is removed right before the side hatch closure. We put that protective fixture there to help ensure that that side hatch is covered during ingress. So the leak check is now underway. As I said before, we're going to for a couple of minutes and just monitor it for any pressure loss. For those of you that have just recently joined, we are now just under 2 hours until liftoff of Axiom 2. It will be heading to the International Space Station. We have a targeted T0 time of 5:37.
නමත් මේ රොකට් කියන් ලොකුවට හොයලා නැහැ අර 3D print අමරසි මේ ටෙරන් වන් රොකට් එක මේ රිලේටිවිටි ස්පේස් එකේ ඒවා ඒකෙන් පස්සේ තමයි බලන්න පටන් ගත්තේ රෙස්පෙක්ට් බ්‍රෝකෝඩ් දිගටම බලමු කන්ටෙන්ට් දානවා දිගට හරහට කෙනින්ම සුද්ධ එන්න දානවා දැන් කන්ටෙන්ට් ස්ක්‍රිප්ට් ලියලා තියෙන්නේ අදත් ලිව්වා මේ පර්සිවියරන්ස් රෝවර් එක ගැන වීඩියෝ එකක් කරලා තියෙනවා ගිහිල්ලා බලන්න පර්සිවියරන්ස් රෝවර් එකේ තියෙනවා මොක්සි කියලා සයන්ටිෆික් ඉන්ස්ට්‍රුමන්ට් එක ඒකින් කරන්නේ මේ බෑග් කරන දේ කියන්න ඒක වීඩියෝ එක බලන්න නැත්තම් වීඩියෝ එක බලන්න කොහරි මොක්සි සයන්ටිෆික් ඉන්ස්ට්‍රුමන්ට් එක ගැන ලිව්වා මේ වීඩියෝ එකක් කරනවා ළඟදී
We are now undergoing the leak check of the side hatch. This side hatch will remain closed until the crew splashes down in 10 days from now. Weather dependent. We can see there inside the white room as the closeout team is performing that leak check. This is such a great view because we saw the astronauts add their signatures to the wall there earlier as right before they got into the Crew Dragon. This was a tradition that SpaceX started with the Demo 2 mission. NASA astronauts Bob Behnken and Doug Hurley were the first.
හැබැයි අර ඒකට කියන නම තමයි pressure leak check. pressure leak එකක් තියනවාද කියලා check කරන scene එකක්.
Crew got to add their signatures along with the Axiom 1 signatures and Inspiration 4 there along the X that we see on the right-hand side.
Great to think about the representation in all of those signatures too. You have, of course, all of those NASA astronauts in various countries that are involved in that space program, and now with that SpaceX logo and the private astronauts that are going up, and now the sovereign nation companies or sovereign nations that will be joining for private launches like today with Axiom. It's really cool to see that diversity and that breadth of representation.
Absolutely.
Everyday Astronaut YouTube channel එකෙන් තාම පටන් ගත්තේ නැහැ.
As I mentioned before, we are operating to a countdown today. That countdown helps ensure that all the teams are tracking.
මේ ඕගොල්ලෝ මේ මොන හරි කැමති ටොපික්ස් තියෙනවා නම් මේ වීඩියෝස් හදන්න මේ දාන්න මේ කමෙන්ට් එක මම මේ කන්සිඩර් කරන්න. මොන හරි ඕගොල්ලෝ ආස මොන හරි සීන් තියෙනවා නම් දාන්න මම හොයලා බලලා වීඩියෝ එකක් කරන්න.
Allow us to reperform steps that might need to be done. So at this point in time, we've just been flying through all the milestones. So we are tracking with great margin at this point.
Okay, well, while we wait for results on that, we're going to go ahead and look at the crew a little bit more deeply. All right, the AX-2 mission commander is Axiom Space Director of Human Spaceflight and retired NASA astronaut Peggy Whitson. During the next 10 days, she'll extend her record as the American with the most amount of time spent in space. Here is a closer look at Peggy.
Listen, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed. Rocket 20.
I saw the first guys walk on the moon, Neil and Buzz, in 1969. I was 9 years old, and I thought, what a cool job. Of course, I was a farm kid from Iowa. How was I ever going to do that? I didn't tell anybody from the time I was 9, raising chickens and learning to fly and all that. I wasn't telling people that I wanted to become an astronaut because it sounded like an impossible dream. And it wasn't until the first females were selected and I graduated from high school, and that to me was when I decided, hey, maybe this is real. Maybe I really can be an astronaut. And it became a goal instead of just a dream.
Peggy Whitson became the first female commander of the International Space Station. She also set records in these categories: most days in space for a U.S. astronaut and more hours spacewalking than any other woman.
She understands what human spaceflight really means when you approach it with that awe and respect and humility. It's like
වැඩිම කාලයක් ස්පේස් ස්ටේෂන් එකේ ගත කරලා තියෙන ඇමරිකානු ජාතික අභ්‍යවකාශගාමියවලු.
But to me, the most important perspective is perspective. You look out the window, you see planet Earth, and it gives you this perspective of how important that we're all one. And we're building this place out in space to replicate the piece parts that we have on Earth. I'm really excited to take this crew up to the space station, number one, because they're all rookies, and this is going to be fun to just relive those first moments with them as they get into space and get to see their excitement and their expressions and joy.
AX2 means there's a 2.0 to her career, and now she gets to help a wonderful company to take that next step in its mission.
Her congeniality and her manner, extremely comforting, and it gave me the confidence that I could do this.
She is inspiring. Personally, I look up to her and I want to be like her.
I don't know. I love everything about Peggy. She's my role model.
I'm Axiom astronaut Peggy Whitson.
The pilot for AX-2 is private astronaut John Schaffner. A STEAM advocate, business pioneer, and lifelong space enthusiast, he's been a pilot since the age of 17 and participates in extreme sports from hang gliding to base jumping to high-performance racing. John.
October Sky. October Sky.
Well, they're fun. They help you find your edge. You don't really want to find the limit. You want to find the edge, I think.
John is a human dynamo, and he is multifaceted, and they can go off in any different direction. But that's just the way he is. You know, it's over and above.
I was probably the outlier in the group. I was always striking out and one climbing trees and on roofs and setting things on fire. I grew up near an airport. I had access to airplanes. I started flying when I was 15. Got my license. Shortly when I was eligible, it was just something I did. In the early 60s, actually 1963, when Jim and I began flying, it was big news. It's easy for an 8-year-old at that time to fall in love with space. That was our fun. Cardboard boxes, rolling down hills, emulating space training, Gemini pilots. So space just became part of the fabric of me, and it never left.
I'd heard about private astronaut travel before. A little bit of research pulled up Axiom Space and their mission.
Well, my wife brought it to my attention. She saw the news article of Axiom flying and said, hey, you can finally go to space. And the moment I heard about this opportunity, I knew I would be on board.
He's on a mission to encourage young minds to use their imagination. And from there, he says, possibilities are endless.
I'm taking a patch for the Middlesbrough Independent School Systems. This is their middle school who last year actually decided to become a STEM certified school. What I want to do is show teachers and educators.
nice. 400 sub එක වගේ කොල්ල බුද්ධික bro, respect bro, quote.
But if you can listen to yourself, follow that voice, then you have an obligation to nurture that. I'm John Schaffner, and I'm the pilot of AX2.
එයා තමයි pilot අද.
Representing the Saudi Space Commission and representing the Saudi Space Commission and serving as mission specialist, Ali Al-Karni is an Air Force captain in the Royal Saudi Air Force.
We'll be commencing health check for launch escape system. Expect a momentary flight computer state change, followed by a transition back to pad hatch closed.
What the fuck?
And Dragon copies, we saw that.
Having trained at King Faisal Air Academy, as well as multiple bases in the U.S., Ali has flown as a fighter pilot for 12 years. Ali was selected as an astronaut in 2020. Here's more on Ali.
I grew up in the southwest region of Saudi Arabia, in a very small town called Sabt al-Alaya. I've always wondered about planes and how they fly. Back then in Saudi Arabia, we did not have a lot of places or...
අපිට පේන්නේ නෑ නේද? මොකද? අපිට පේන්නේ නෑ නේද එක රොකට් එකක් උඩ යනකොට. මේක පේන්නේ නෑ මචං. මේක නෙමෙයි මේ එකක් පෙවුණා මේ ළඟදී. මේ මොකක්ද දන්න? ජූස් ස්පේස් ක්‍රාෆ්ට් එක ලොන්ච් කරානේ මේ Ariane 5 එකේ. අන්න ඒ Ariane 5 රොකට් එක ලොන්ච් කරපු දවසේ ගාල් පැත්තට පෙවුණා මං හිතන්නේ. මේ ගාල් නෙමෙයි ලංකාවටම පේනවා කියලා කිව්වා. හැබැයි එදා මේ මාර විදිහට වැස්සා. මට මතකයි මං ඔව් මම ලයිව් එකක් කරා. මට මතකයි එදා වැස්සා. වැස්ස හින්දා මේ වැහි කළු වලට ඉතින් පේන්නේ නෑනේ එතකොට. නැත්නම් එදා හොඳට පායලා තිබ්බ දවසක් නම් බලන්න තිබ්බේ.
Privileged and honored to represent my country. I was really surprised about the results out of the announcement. People are loving it. People are super supportive of the mission. I consider myself a newly married. I've been married for 3 years now. And I've had my daughter. She's 12 months old. And I want to share with them how big it is what I'm about to do. It is an amazing opportunity to be on top of a rocket filled with fuel and gas that are going to boost you to space. The team is amazing. We have worked so much to make sure we...
මෙයා තමයි මේ සෞදි අරාබිය නියෝජනය කරන එක්කන මේ සෞදි ස්පේස් කොමිෂන් කියලා මේ කොමිසමක් තියෙනවා ඒක නියෝජනය කරන්න මෙයා තමයි ඉලදී.
Everything regarding this mission.
I would like to thank Axiom Space for enabling us to go back to space and giving us this opportunity.
I have an amazing family.
Yes, අපේ කරුමේ.
I want them to know before I step into the rocket that I love them and I will always be there, whether physically or mentally with them, and I'll do whatever it takes to make them feel happy and loved.
Representing the Saudi Space Commission and also serving as mission specialist, Rayana Barnawi has a master's degree in biomedical sciences from Al Faisal University in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, and a bachelor's degree in biomedical sciences from Otago University in Dunedin, New Zealand. Here's a closer look at Rayana.
It's a historic moment for Saudi Arabia and the entire Arab world.
Saudi Arabia will be sending its first ever female astronaut into space.
Saudi Arabia පළවෙනි යෝගාසකරන පාන්තා.
I was always into exploring new things. Research was one of the things that fulfilled that feeling for me. Trying to experiment, finding a piece of the puzzle that could solve a mystery. I never thought that I will ever be going to space, but at the same time, it feels like a dream come true. It's an overwhelming feeling, of course. Home for me is a small town. My dad had a little farm. He taught us how to plant. That was one of the first experiments. That was one of the most fascinating feelings. My grandmother. To me, she is my role model. I can say that my grandma is my biggest fan, and I'm very glad that I have my grandma's support.
Saudi Arabia will be sending it.
කරන්න දෙයක් නෑලුනේ අද මුන්ගේ හැල්ල අහන්න සල්ලි දීලානේ තියන්නේ.
Is part of a private mission operated by Axiom Space.
Rayana, she is an amazing scientist. She's done stem cell research and breast cancer research, and we are really excited to have her on board the space station doing some of the same types of things in space.
It honestly feels like I am representing all Saudi's ambition, all female and all researchers as well. It's a big honor to be able to go to space and at the same time do the things that you love the most.
It's not just that you have a nation that's proud of you, but you are creating the dream and the opportunity for this next generation to become the next space engineers and creating the idea that the infinite is possible and that space is a true opportunity.
زي ما قال سمو ولي العهد محمد بن سلمان، نحن دولة للحالمين. أي حد عنده حلم يقدر يحلم عشان يوصل بدعم منه وبدعم من السعودية كاملة. بإذن الله احنا حنوصل للهدف اللي احنا نبغاه. I am Saudi national astronaut Rayana Barnawi.
Arabic language මාර ලස්සනයි. මම මාර ආසයි Arabic language.
We're now at T-minus 1 hour, 42 minutes and 55 seconds until liftoff of AX2. We have confirmation that the side hatch was closed and we got a good leak check. So everything is continuing to progress on time.
And as operations continue, we want to provide an overview of some of the science and research activities planned for the AX2 mission. To help us unpack the breadth of Axiom-managed payloads is one who has helped every principal investigation team prepare for this mission, our very own chief scientist, Dr. Lucy Lowe. She's at Kennedy Space Center in Florida with Axiom Space Director of Digital Strategy, Sonia Gavankar-McKay. Sonia, great to see you, and we're excited to understand what's ahead in the next couple of weeks for our crew.
Thanks so much, Duke. It's great to be here with all of you as the excitement really builds toward launch. We're just a few miles away. In fact, you may be able to see the Falcon 9 rocket with the AX2 crew.
Nice. Respect. මේ බලන් ඉන්න කට්ටිය මොන හරි මේ කියන්න මොන හරි කමෙන්ට් සෙක්ෂන් එකේ ලයිව් chat එක දාන්න මොන හරි කම්මැලි නැත්ත
Time to cover it, so let's dive right in. It is packed for it, but what has been the scientific strategy for this mission and what do we expect to see?
So the scientific strategy is really continuing what we did on AX1, which is expanding access to microgravity for a whole new global community of researchers. So we're really excited to welcome on board our Saudi Arabian partners and see them do the research they want to do. We also have some opportunities to expand commercial opportunities by manufacturing products in space that could be beneficial for life here on Earth. So we have a glut of projects that are going to be doing all kinds of stuff about in-space manufacturing. So we're really excited about those.
Now, you've organized the portfolio into 5 main categories, and we're going to kind of touch on each one of them very briefly. Let's start with physical sciences. I noticed that from the list there is radiation protection research as well as some storm-related research that is looking at how weather and climate and seeding clouds. Tell me what this all means.
Exactly. So we have a really fun experiment that's brought from us from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia looking at cloud seeding. So they're looking at how silver iodide crystals can actually form water vapor in a specially designed chamber. So they're not only understanding how cloud seeding could be more effective here on Earth, but they're also looking with a vision to perhaps extraterrestrial agriculture. So maybe growing crops on the moon and in Mars in future.
Wow.
We also have projects looking at radiation shielding. So the sun spits out a bunch of radiation. So looking at how different kinds of polymers could actually protect the electronics on the space station could actually help with future spacecraft design. And then finally, you mentioned storms. We have some really fun projects where the crew are actually going to be trying to capture images of what we call transient luminous effects, which are events which occur just above thunderstorms at the same time that lightning strikes. And we can't see them from the ground because we're underneath the clouds. So on top of the clouds, we can see these phenomena, and it helps us understand more about our own weather and climate down here on Earth.
Excellent. So the next portfolio is life sciences. Research includes DNA, nanomaterials, and reprogramming skin cells to help create regenerative medicine. There's also research planned to build on AX1 science modeling tumor organoids to better predict and treat cancers. Can you break down a few of those for us and tell me again what we can expect to see, what the astronauts will be doing up in space?
Yeah, absolutely. So as I referred to some of those in-space manufacturing projects, so the DNA-inspired nanomaterial that you referred to could actually be used as a therapeutic delivery agent in future, or as a scaffolding for degenerating joints. We have also projects looking at 3D bioprinted tissues, so looking at liver and kidney and seeing how they respond in microgravity, which could be potentially very informative for helping us understand regenerative medicine efforts. And then we have a whole other project on stem cell manufacturing, which could actually then help with lots of kind of clinical applications here on Earth. So lots of research on that end, not even to mention all of the human research that our crew are very willing participants in, where they're doing all kinds of experiments to see how the human body responds to space, how it adapts to microgravity, and how we can use that knowledge not only to make space travel more safe for humans in future, but also help us understand our own physiology back here on Earth a little bit better.
Okay, on to tech. The research being conducted here seems to be how can we automate more to take up less time doing things like data transfer. We know about that on Earth. What's it like up in space? Making communications with Earth easier and literally tracking where supplies and materials are on board. I mean, they have a lot of space up there inside the building, right? So they have to be able to track where everything is, loose bolts and whatnot. What stands out to you in this research?
So it's interesting you mentioned how much space there is up there because there's fairly limited space. So we have some, they can't exactly. So we have some Axiom technology demonstrations where we're demoing some of our own technologies that we can use on Axiom Station in future. But we also have some really fun technology demonstrations from our partners that are sampling the air inside the ISS. They're using special sensors called quartz crystal microbalances that can detect tiny molecules in the air and tell us a bit about the air quality inside the ISS. And then we have a really fun project from the MIT Media Lab where they're looking at what they call a gravity countermeasures loading suit or a skin suit, which actually models some of the effects of gravity on our crew. And so it helps them prevent some of the physical deconditioning that astronauts see when they go into space.
Really important research.
Absolutely.
ලයිව් ඉන්නට තේගෙනවලු තැංකූ අඩු මතක්කන්න එපාබන් තේ හදන්න හිතෙන දැම්මට ගිහිල්ල එන්නේ
space that can create materials or biomedical products that can benefit life here on Earth. Because that's ultimately what we want to do at Axiom, is everything we do in space, we want to be benefiting every human everywhere, which includes not just the astronauts, but all of us back down here as well.
Well, thank you so much, Lucy, for all your time. We're going to be talking to you during the mission as well to find out a little bit more about what's been transpiring up in space, what we expect to see down here, and so much more will come our way. Thank you so much, Lucy, for your time.
Thank you, Sonia.
Well, that is amazing groundbreaking work that we're going to be seeing, the additional insights of these studies, and so much. You can follow the efforts as they play out on orbit. Just visit us at axiomspace.com/AX2research. We're going to send you back now to Hawthorne, to Duke and Kate. Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you, Sonia. Thank you, Dr. Lowe. Well, switching gears a bit, Axiom Space is also working to create partnerships with companies that you wouldn't typically expect to hear about going to space. Some of those companies end up with some representation on board a mission as well.
Besides the crew, the Dragon is also carrying hundreds of kilograms of supplies and resources for the mission. Most of these materials are essential supplies, but every mission has a few fun surprises. One of those that's often discussed is the highly anticipated microgravity indicator. This is actually the only item inside Dragon that isn't secured at launch. Once the crew successfully reach orbit, the microgravity indicator will begin to float, allowing all of us to visually see what we've completed during the launch phase of the mission.
And to reveal the indicator, a fifth crew member named Gigi here is a very special greeting from Sharon John and a few of the younger Axiom family members who helped prepare the indicator for this flight.
Hi, it's Sharon John, Build-A-Bear CEO and President. We're incredibly thrilled to be a part of the AX2 mission to space. Thank you.
ඕකදේ අයිදාන එහෙම මචම් රොකට්ටයක් එහෙම යයිද කියලා එහෙම කියන්න බෑ අන්තිම තප්පරය වෙනකම්. ඒ කියන්නේ රොකට් එකේ එන්ජින් ඉග්නිෂන් එක උනාට පස්සෙත් බෝට් කරන්න ඉඩ තියෙනවා. මේ අපිට සාමාන්‍යයෙන් දැන් කියන්න පුළුවන් මේ දැනට තියෙන කන්ඩිෂන්ස් 90% හොඳයි 100% හොඳයි weather එක 90% හොඳයි propulsion ඒ ඔක්කොම වැඩ කරන හැබැයි අන්තිම තප්පරය වෙනකම් අපිට කියන්න බෑ ඕකද එහෙම කියන්න බෑ. මේක හෙන complicated systems කොටක් තියෙනවා මේකේ. මේ අපි මේ එකින් එක මේ කතා කරන්නේ ඒව ගැන තමයි. ඉතින් මේ අපේ YouTube channel එකේ මේ propulsion system, avionics, තකියයි ground systems, launch pad එකේ මේ තියෙන avionics, ඊට පස්සේ dilute systems, ඊට පස්සේ මේ tanks, fuel tanks, oxidizer tanks, අම්බු කොච්චර ඒවා තියෙනවද කියන්නේ හරිය. ඒ නිසා අපිට අන්තිම තප්පර වෙනකන් අපිට කියන්න බෑ. අර ටෙරාන් එකත් මම බලමු. අඩු සිරාවට ඔයි ඒ ටෙරාන් එක ලොන්ච් ඇටෙම්ප්ට්ස් පළවෙනි දෙකම කෙලවුණානේ. මේ තුන්වෙනි දවසේ මට එක්සෑම් එක සෙට් වුණාට බාන්න බැරි වුණා අපරාදේ. මටත් බාන්න බැරි වුණා. බලපු නැති දවස් තමයි ලොන්ච් කළේ. මේ ඉඳා මටත් බාන්න බැරි වුණා.
And these spacesuits will enable more exploration of the lunar surface than ever before. Speaking of Artemis 3 and these lunar missions, SpaceX is playing a significant role in that mission as well.
That's right. We are incredibly honored to be a part of NASA's Artemis program to establish a sustainable presence on the moon to prepare for missions to Mars. SpaceX will conduct an uncrewed demonstration mission to the moon with our new Starship vehicle prior to the Artemis 3 mission, marking humanity's first return to the lunar surface in more than 50 years. Starship's early flight tests, followed by regular Starlink deployment missions and propellant transfer demonstrations, are also directly advancing NASA's Artemis program, along with SpaceX's ongoing mission to make life multiplanetary.
A big thanks to Sharon John and Bill
dialogue.
for their support in our mission. We're all really excited to see Gigi floating around inside the Dragon in the next couple hours. To learn more about Gigi and all the exciting efforts on this mission, visit axiomspace.com.
We're just over 90 minutes away as the Axiom 2 crew awaits its 5:37
මෙයා තමයි ඩයල් එක.
Eastern Time liftoff
එයා තමයි අපි හොය
39A
හිටියේ.
at Kennedy Space Center. Right now, quick status update. The crew's inside the capsule. The side hatch is closed as of about 30 minutes ago. Leak check complete. We've also had completion of comm checks between both Dragon and Falcon ground teams with the crew. Looking at weather right now, the weather continues to be good for launch and any contingencies if needed. Local pad weather continues to be that 25% probability of violation. We'll just watch over the last hour and a half if we get any clouds drifting over from inland. Conditions in the Atlantic are also good should we need a contingency landing somewhere along the eastern seaboard. Falcon 9 team will begin bleed in at T-minus 1 hour and 10-minute mark of the Merlin engines. And the latest update we've heard from the SpaceX team out at 39A, the support crew is leaving the crew access arm with the hatch closed. All their work is finished. So right now, everything is on schedule at T-minus 1 hour, 30 minutes, and 28 seconds.
තව විනාඩි 90යි. මේ වෙනකොට crew supports මේ
And with our crew safely inside Dragon Freedom and continuing their preparation for launch, let's head back over to Sonia Gavankar-McKay at Kennedy Space Center for a conversation with a member.
දැන් ඔක්කොම crew supportersලා hatch එක close කරලා දැන් ඔතනින් පිටත් වෙලා යනවා. ඊට පස්සේ අර සුදු පාට white room එක කියන අර දන් කෑල්ල ඔතනින් දැන් rocket එකෙන් අයින් වෙනවා.
It's just years.
ඔක්කොම schedule එකට අනුව සිද්ධ වෙනවා.
4 years ago. And like any commercial partnership, there are a lot of details to work out. And that's especially true with the U.S. commercial company signing with a place in 2020. Then you have to get to work planning, preparing, training for the mission. Not only are these partnerships beneficial for Axiom Space and our goals of building, expanding access to low Earth orbit, but for all. But we're enabling nations like the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, organizations and individuals to achieve in space. Joining me.
Brother, ඔයාගේ Facebook group ඔව් මගේ Facebook group එකක් තියෙනවා. ඒකේ තමයි මම ගොඩක්ම updates දෙන්නේ. මේ මට හැම වෙලෙම ඉතින් YouTube live වෙන්න බෑනේ. ඔය මොන හරි ෂණික එන විස්තර මම පටස් ගාලා දානවා. ඔයක ගොඩක් කට්ටිය active ඉන්නවා දැන්. members ලත් ගොඩක් ඉන්නවා. space stuff වලට කැමති, rockets ගැන වලට කැමති. එහෙම ඒගොල්ලෝ ගොඩක් ඒකේ post දානවා. කට්ටිය ප්‍රශ්න අහගන්නවා. දැන් පට්ට active කට්ටිය ඒක ඇතුලේ. මේ group එක දැන් හොඳට active වෙලා තියෙන කට්ටිය මේ Telegram channel එකක් හෝ group එක මට හදන එක නෙමෙයි ප්‍රශ්නේ මචං මේ ඔය මේන්ටේන් ගන්න අමාරුයි පොඩ්ඩක් දැන් මගේ මම දැන් page එකක් කරන්නෙත් නෑ මම group එකක් හදලා තියෙනෙත් ඒකයි කට්ටියත් එක්ක set වෙලා මේවා කර page එක හදලා තියෙන්නේ මේක ගිහින් like ගන්න ඒ වුණාට page එකටත් වැඩිය අපි group එකේ තමයි පොඩ් active
been there
Oh, the
38
Mebua.
years ago, actually, with Prince Sultan being the first Arab and first Muslim to go to space, and we're continuing this work in going with the first female
It's a
Saudi
big
and Muslim
moment.
astronaut.
It's such a momentous moment. We talked about the first steps. We talked about the evolution. Long term, what are the goals for SSE?
So the national space strategy aims to have the kingdom to be a key player in the space sector.
Right.
This is just the beginning. This is just a first program, and this only looks at the sector of the human space flight, and we see this mission as a stepping stone that will continue to take presence in space.
And what does the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia have that's unique that you bring to the table?
I think you could know like Rihanna's like for today she's unique becoming the first Muslim and Arab to go to the ISS and also first it's actually going to be the 6th country to have two from the same national astronauts in the station.
So this is, like we said, the first step. It's an exciting step. How do you feel right now?
Oh, my feeling. I can't really explain my feeling. I don't think that I have enough words to express my feeling. We're looking at the countdown. We're so excited. We've been waiting for this moment for a long time. we're so excited. We're so happy. We're tuning in to watch the launch. We can't wait to see them in orbit.
And you've spent a lot of time in Houston with us, right? Through all of the training, you've been there. You've kind of been training with these astronauts in the same way. Do you feel like you're part of the crew, or do you feel like a support system?
You know, to be honest, I wanted to be in the cargo, actually.
You're going to be a stowaway?
Yes, yeah. I really wanted to go with them. I feel like I am
sorry,
with
sorry.
them in the journey. I enjoyed like this is the most exciting moment, of course. I can't wait to see.
මචං එතකොට මේ දේවල් ෂෙඩියුල් එකටම නොවුනොත් ලොන්ච් කරද්දි ටයිම් එක මයිනස් වෙනවද? අනිවාර්යෙන් ඒ කියන්නේ අපේ දැන් මේ සාමාන්‍යයෙන් ෆැල්කන් 9 රොකට් ලොන්ච් එක ෆියුල් පම්ප් කරන එකේ ඉඳලා හැමදේම ෂෙඩියුල් කරලා තියෙන්නේ. මේ ෆියුල් ඔක්සිඩයිසර් එතකොට ඒවා ඉවර වෙන්න ඕනේ වෙලාවලුත් තියෙනවා. ඒ කියන්නේ මේ කාලය ඇතුළත ෆියුල්ස් මේ වෙලා තියෙන්න ඕනේ. එතකොට මොකක් හරි ප්‍රෙෂර් එකක සීන් එකක් කරේ ඉතින් අපි දන්නේ නැහැනේ ගොඩක් ප්‍රශ්නෙන්න ඉඩ තියෙනවානේ. මේ එතකොට මොකක් හරි ප්‍රශ්නයක් වෙලා මේ වුණොත් එහෙම අපි මේ පරස් ගාලා T- ක්ලොක් එක එක්කෝ ස්ටොප් කරනවා. ඒකට ඊට පස්සේ ප්‍රශ්නේ ඉන්වෙස්ටිගේට් කරනවා. ඊට පස්සේ ඒක එවලේ හදන්න පුළුවන්ද කියලා ඒගොල්ලෝ මම හිතන්නේ චෙක් කරලා එහෙම පුළුවන් නම් එවලේ පටස් ගාලා මේවා කරන්න මේ ඒගොල්ලෝ තව 2 minutes හරි 10 minutes හරි 50 එහෙම මොකක් හරි 1 hour හරි ඇඩ් කරලා ආයෙත් T- ක්ලොක් එක කරනවා. ඒ කියන්නේ බැරි වුණත් abort කරනවා එදාට. ඒ කියන්නේ හදන්න බැරි සීන් නම් abort කරනවා. අපි ඔයගොල්ලෝ මතකද ස්ටාර්ෂිප් ෆස්ට් මේ ටෙස්ට් ෆ්ලයිට් එකේ මේ විනාඩි 2යි ගානකටද කොහෙදම ආවනේ. ඊට පස්සේ මේ abort කරානේ එදා. ඊට පස්සේ දවසෙත් මේ ප්‍රෙෂර් විසල් එක මේ කේස් එකක් ආවනේ. ප්‍රෙෂර් මේ ඔක්සිඩයිසර් වැල් එක ප්‍රෙෂර් සීන් එකක් ඇවිල්ලා ආයෙත් abort කරානේ. හැබැයි විනාඩි 2-3ක් ගිහිල්ලා ආයෙත් මේ T-30 seconds තප්පර 30යි. තප්පර 30න් ලොන්ච් කළා. ඒ වගේ ඉතින් මේ එවලේ හදන්න පුළුවන් සීනුත් තියෙනවා. එදාට නෑ බැරි වුණොත් abort කරනවා. ඒ වගේ සීන් තියෙනවා ඉතින්.
Hi, this is Mark Pathy, mission specialist from AX1, and I'm sending out my warmest greetings to the crew of AX2 as you count down the final days before your big launch. Peggy and John, I'm super excited for both of you. I know you've been waiting a while for this and maybe a little bit jealous too. But I hope you have a great mission. And Ali and Ryana, although we haven't met, I've heard that you guys are a great addition to the team. Please take good care of my friends up there and look forward to seeing all of you on your side. Godspeed, AX2.
I am honored to have the opportunity to speak to all of you, the crew of AX2.
මම ආසම නැතියෝ. ඕක දන්නේ අපි මේක බලමු.
That we landed in your country and we can pick up the capsule from here.
Yeah, so we actually have to think about that and make sure that we're prepared for that. Obviously, we have the military supports us, the State Department supports us if we do land somewhere where we're not supposed to be at. But most of our aborts.
මේ තමයි NASA recovery මේ ටීම් එකේ මේ members ලා ගැම්මක් තමයි ඉතින්. ඒ කියන්නේ මේ capsules recovery කරන්නේ. මේ capsule recovery කරන scene එක දන්නේ නැත්නම් මම අද දාපු වීඩියෝ එක බලන්න ගිහිල්ලා. හරිද මේ ඒකේ recovery visuals ගැන හොඳට මම explain කරනවා. ඒ මේ අද දාපු වීඩියෝ එක අනිවාර්යෙන් බලන්න.
Or it could be a military vessel. So we work in conjunction with the military and prepare for those kind of scenarios. The State Department and the highest levels of NASA to make sure that we have those partnerships in place if we do land somewhere where we're not supposed to be.
And that's part of like when we launch our rockets, they go out over the water, right? So it's not like we, I don't know, launch them down into Mexico right away from, that'd be a really weird trajectory. Maybe Vandenberg could do it, right? But we launch out of the water. So early in the flight, like when we're really sort of getting up that big hard, like I'm going to say the hardest part, clearly lots of hard parts, but we're over the water for
අපි රොකට් උඩ යනවා බලන්න. අඩේ ලෝඩ් වෙන්නේ මොකද?
A commercial partner capsule, a spacecraft was around the ISS,
it's in space, then you can sort of determine when it deorbits, so you can aim at a spot. And the same thing, like, I guess coming back from the moon, we have the entire trajectory and all the burns and everything. Like, we can control where that capsule's supposed to come down. That's like sort of part of the plan, right?
We can control the final location in case of weather, but when it's coming back from the moon, it's coming back from the moon. And so also there could be issues during the reentry where we could have in Soyuz, and it has happened in Soyuz before, where you could come in, instead of your normal entry interface, you have a ballistic interface or a direct, which means that you're farther away than your planned launch. This is why we have the rescue forces from the military on alert when we're coming back from landing, so that we can deploy those assets as soon as we know that we're going to be in an off-nominal event. Of course, we're going to be out in the Pacific on a nominal event, and if for some reason they splash down, like it happened with the Intrepid having to go get the astronaut carpenter out where they weren't expecting to, we would call up whatever assets nearby, and we would go to them also to go recover the capsule. Artemis is a little different, is we do rely on the DoD for the rescue off nominal, but we are responsible also for the recovery of the capsule. Commercial crew, I believe Boeing and SpaceX are responsible for their capsules after the crew is
දැන්න
out.
ප්ලේන්ටිය සිරාවට
it's a
මේ
little
කල්පනා
different.
කරගෙන හිටියේ ඒක
Yeah,
ගැන
that's
තමයි.
true. We partner with the DoD
යනවද නැද්ද
similar
කියලා.
to how Artemis will
Negative not comment.
to go and rescue our crew members. But we also have things like the first responder checklist, which is like a quick look cheat sheet.
මේගොල්ලෝ මේ නිකන් ඉන්නලාට පට්ට පොඩ්කාස්ට් එකක් තියෙනවා අහන්න මේ ලෙක්ස් ෆ්‍රිඩ්මන්ගේ මේ ඕගොල්ලෝ ලෙක්ස් ෆ්‍රිඩ්මන් දන්නවා ඇතිනේ අනිවාර්යෙන් ලෙක්ස් ෆ්‍රිඩ්මන් මේ රොබර්ට් මේ ප්ලේ එක කරලා තිබ්බා මේ බොස්ටන් ඩයිනමික්ස් කම්පැනි එක තියෙන්නේ මොකක්ද බොස්ටන් ඩයිනමික්ස් කියන්නේ මේ අර රොබෝටික් ඩොග්ස්ලා එහෙම හදන්නේ රොබෝටික් හියුමන්ස්ලා එහෙම මේ හදන්න try කරන්නේ මේ බොස්ටන් ඩයිනමික්ස් කහ පාට රොබෝටික් ඩොග්ස් අන්න ඒකේ CEO එක කරලා තියෙනවා මේ පොඩ්කාස්ට් එක පට්ට මේක අහන්න අනිවාර්යෙන් තව ඒක ඉතින් දාන හැම පොඩ්කාස්ට් එකක්ම හොඳයි ඉතින් අහන්න වෙලාව තියෙනවා නම් අහන්න අනිවාර්යෙන් මේ තව everyday astronaut එක කරලා තියෙනවා 5 hour plus පොඩ්කාස්ට් එකක් ඒකත් අනිවාර්යෙන් අහන්න ඉලෝන් මස්ක් එක්ක 3ක්ද 4ක්ද කරලා තියෙන ඒකත් අනිවාර්යෙන් අහන්න තව මේ ජෝයි රෝගන් කරලා තියෙනවා ලෙක්ස් ෆ්‍රිඩ්මන් එක පොඩ්කාස්ට් එක ඒකත් අනිවාර්යෙන් අහන්න මේ ඔය පොඩ්කාස්ට් සෙට් එකක් තියෙනවා අහන්න ඕනේ මම මේ ඒ ටික ලින්ක්ස් එක්ක දාන්නම් විලාවක මේ YouTube එකේ කමියුනිටි පෝස්ට් එක ඔයගොල්ලෝ ඒ ටික නිකන් ඉන්නවට අහන්න පට්ටම නොලෙජ් එකක් ගත්ත හැකි එකේ මට පොඩ්කාස්ට් එකක් කරන්න මේ ආසයි බාන්න ඕනේ වෙලාව තමයි පොඩ්ඩක් ප්‍රශ්නේ
Our Star Wars reference in Artemis for sure.
Visit nft.axiomspace.com. There you can also find more instructions on how to get involved and buy your boarding pass to participate in all of the AX2 activities. Well, the most visible part of Axiom's work today is these missions to the International Space Station. These are just the leading edge of one aspect to the preparation for our real goal, operating a completely commercial space station and laboratory in low Earth orbit. These missions serve as an opportunity to learn and prepare for how to handle logistics, maintenance, schedules, routines, crew volume, and every other aspect of space missions. The roadmap that Axiom Space has created points to some major milestones to evolve our presence in space. They include deploying our own habitation modules and docking them to the front of the International Space Station, deploying our own solar panel and Earth observatory elements, overseeing long-duration space flights of 6 months or more that lead to a permanent presence of commercial activities off-planet, developing spacesuits and other necessary technology to live and work in space, and eventually breaking away from the International Space Station to be 100% independent as a commercial space station. While the launch of the first ever commercial space station module is still a couple years from launch, the process of designing and now manufacturing have been underway since 2015. Here is a bit more
Dragon
on the
SpaceX
current
for
status.
Falcon 9 status update.
Go for Falcon 9 status.
The F9 team is going to take the action to vent the manifold for the pre-briefed Falcon 9 status. This will be a loud venting, so we do expect that you will hear it in the vehicle. They'll be taking that commanding shortly, but just giving you a heads up, you will hear this venting.
අම්මට සිරේ Falcon 9 boost එකෙන් පට්ට ventilation එකක් යන්නලු යන්නේ ඒ හින්දා සද්ද වැඩි වෙයිලු. රෙඩිද කියලා අහන සද්දෙට මූණ දෙන්න. වෙඩි මුණක් නැදත් මූණ
All right,
දෙන්න
so that
වෙනවා.
was SpaceX core Arthur. And that was SpaceX core Arthur Burialt, just letting the crew know to expect loud venting noise. Again, that is the primary voice of communication to the crew to update them on status, as well as items like this where they can expect to hear something.
Good heads up for the crew there. So, talking about Axiom Space Station, here's a bit more on the current status, currently under construction.
We are building the world's first commercial space station, one element at a time. We think that what we're doing is for everyone everywhere. This is a global endeavor. Our partner Thales Alenia in Italy is in the finishing stages of building the first module, the first pressure vessel.
We are here in the integration and manufacturing area of Thales Alenia
Memes
Space.
ಅದಲ್ಲ
Here
action
we have
ಹೇಳ್ತಿರೋ
the two cons that will be part of the module is also the gate to the module to come in and to come out.
මේ Axiom Space එකෙන් ලෝකෙ මේ පෘථිවියේ පළවෙනි පෞද්ගලික අභ්‍යවකාශ මධ්‍යස්ථානය හදන ගමන් ඉන්නේ. මේක පෙන්නන්න. දැන් ඒගොල්ලෝ 190ක් ඩිසයින් කරලා ඉවරයි. මේ මම ගොල්ලන්ට පෙන්නන්න මේ
On
වීඩියෝ.
these ports, all additional modules will be docked. This is the most complex piece of the entire Axiom module.
We're on pace to build a human-rated spaceship faster than anyone's ever built one. When we look at our roadmap,
ඔය තියන්නේ ඔය
we look
පෙන්නන්න
to
එක
see
තමයි.
how we can double its capability every 5 years. It requires a lot
ඕකනේ
of
අර
different
කෙලින්ම ගිහිල්ලා
talents, a
කෑල්ල
lot of
ඩොක්
different
කරලා මේගොල්ලෝ
engineering backgrounds.
හදන්න
So
හදන්න.
we've really expanded the
තව
team.
වාස්ට් එකෙන් ගහන ස්පේස්
I'm
ස්ටේෂන්
working
වල.
on the time-sensitive
Vast
network
company
aspect of the space station. So that's the network, have all the flight computers synchronized and actually do the thruster firing at perfect time.
ඒවල් හදලා තියෙනවා වගේ අහසේ.
So this is the command trailer.
අඩෝ
We're
ආතල්ල.
able to control our test stand, which enables us to vary our set pressures, our flow rates into the thruster in order to collect performance data at various OFs and chamber pressure conditions. It's always a blast to come out here, set everything up, and start lighting rockets off.
Behind us, we have the carbon dioxide removal subassembly. We're going to be creating the most integrated ecosystem that has ever been put into space thus far, which is a really cool thing to be able to say.
I fabricate PC boards and cables and harnessing. This is a life critical job, and you want to make sure you do the best possible job.
ජෝයි රෝගන් පොඩ්කාස්ට් එක නෑ මචං මම මේ YouTube එකේ
15
Spotify
to 20
නෑ.
years from now, we're going to be surrounded by objects that we can't imagine how we live without that were manufactured in space. I think there's another promise too, and that's why I'm
අපිත්
really
තවමත්
excited
යමු.
about the X2.
යයි මේ YouTube channel එක හැදුවේ මම ඒකට
There is this
තමයි.
effect
මේකෙන්
that
හම්බෙන
people
සල්ලි වලින් මේ
gone to space and had
මං
this
ගිහිල්ලා
called the
යනවා.
overview effect.
ඊට
Many
පස්සේ
people have come back
හම්බෙන සල්ලි එකතු
profoundly
කරලා ඕගොල්ලොන්ට
changed
දෙනවා.
because of their
ඊට පස්සේ
experience.
ඕගොල්ලොන්ට යන්න
And I
දෙනවා.
think the more people that we can have that see the world as the whole world, the better off
Big
we all
brain. අයියෝ
We're excited for these short duration missions and even more excited to be able to get into
තවපැයයි.
long duration missions as we begin to bring Axiom Station online. But before we get there, we still have at least 2 more flights to go, AX3 and AX4. We aren't quite ready yet to talk about the details of dates and crew members, but in the same
අන්තිම විනාඩීදී abort කළාම okay.
there are national astronauts and other nations. And as it was previously announced, we will be flying a member of the Italian Air Force on an upcoming mission as well. Between these new sovereign nations and the private citizens who now have a way to partake in the marvel of living and working in space, we are truly working to expand access to low Earth orbit for all. And that's not even counting the opportunities to help NASA, ESA, and JAXA find ways to expand their efforts in low Earth orbit.
It's all super exciting news and progress for the future of human spaceflight. We're really looking forward to successful completion of this mission as well as the 2 that are yet to come. Now, at the moment, let's check in with John I
මේ
for
live
another
එකේ ඉන්න
status
හැමෝම like
update.
එකක් දාන්න. එතකොට තව කට්ටියට pop up වෙනවා
Just
වීඩියෝ
over
එක.
70 minutes away as the Axiom 2 crew awaits its 5:37 p.m. Eastern Time liftoff from Launch Pad 39A at Kennedy Space Center. You've got a view right now of the crew access arm. The seals along Dragon have actually been deflated. You can see a little bit of a
හැබැයි
gap
ඉතින්
between
ඔහොම
the
පැය
capsule and
ගණන්
the arm.
ඉඳගෙන ඉන්න නම් බෑර
SpaceX team
කොට්ටේට.
has left the tower.
පැය
They're
ගණන් නෙමෙයි
getting
මාෂෝ
out of
දවස්
the,
ගණන් ඉන්න වෙන්නේ.
hazard area.
ඇයි අපි
So
මේ
everything continues
ඉන්දියාවට
to go
ගිහිල්ලනවා
on
වගේ නෙමෙයිනේ.
time as we've got the
යන්න
crew in the
එපයි.
capsule
එන්න
with
උඩ
all
මේ
activities complete today.
ඕක උඩ ගියා වගේ
Currently,
නෙමෙයි.
weather, you can see the blue
ඊපස්සේ
skies
ඕක
in the area,
ඕකේ
some
පොඩි
clouds
තීම්
around
වගේක්
there.
තියෙනවා ඉතින්.
We
Orbit
haven't had
කරන්න
any
ඕනේ ඊට
updates
පස්සේ
that
ඕකේ
indicate
thrusters
things are
වලින්
better or worse than when
පැයම
we started
හිටන්නේ
the webcast. We're still at about a 25% probability of violation, but everything continues to look good. We do
නුවන්
watch the
කල්හාර
upper
ඇවිල්ලා ඉන්නවා.
altitude clouds
Hi
as we get
නුවන්.
later and later into the afternoon. It's at the higher altitudes where the wind actually could carry some anvil clouds back over the pad in the ascent corridor. In that case, we've got to worry about things like lightning. But right now, the flight path downrange continues to be good for launch. But we're going to have to watch that until we get all the way down to T0. Now, as you can see, it's still daylight, obviously, at Kennedy Space Center. Folks in the local area are going to have a good view. But unlike a night launch where people all up and down the eastern seaboard of the United States can see the vehicle, you're going to have to be in the local area to watch Falcon 9 with Dragon take off. You see right now is looking down from on top of the service structure at the top of the crew access arm, the Dragon capsule with the solar rays. And then below that is the Falcon 9, and you can see just a little bit of the transporter erector. The arms actually that will open up around the second stage as we get down into the last 4 minutes of the countdown. Another view Falcon 9 with Dragon on pad 39A. We've been listening in the Falcon 9 team, the Dragon team, they are on schedule.
වැඩි මගේ perseverance rover
reporting
එක ගැන
no
දාපු වීඩියෝ
significant
1000ක් බලන්න.
issues. Everything continuing to look good.
Respect.
Now, one update that'll be a little different on this flight, the first stage will be coming back to what we call a land landing or return to launch site. And so we'll continue to cover that as the second stage with Dragon heads into orbit. One difference you're going to see this time is given the trajectory of Falcon 9 when we carry astronauts to space, we can come back now to the landing site just down from Kennedy Space Center. But what that means is we're going to have a slightly different sequence of burns. We'll do the boost back burn with 3 engines as is traditional coming back to land. The entry burn as we get to the atmosphere fringe, that's a single engine. It's a fairly short burn. We don't have to slow down much. But when we land, we're going to light 3 engines. Right now, T-minus 1 hour, 7 minutes, 25 seconds and counting. Everything is go for an on-time launch.
ඒගොල්ලෝ අනිවාර්යෙන් මේ අර perseverance rover එක ගැන කරපු වීඩියෝ එක බලන්න. ඒක පට්ටම ටෙක්නිකල් වීඩියෝ එකක්. ඕගොල්ලොන්ට මේ ලංකාවේ ඔව් තරුණ මිලියන 1000ක් මේ
A big thanks to all of you tuning in now as we welcome NASA and their coverage of the second Axiom mission, AX2. You're joining us here with live views from NASA's Kennedy Space Center. Specifically, this is the iconic Launch Complex 39A with a Falcon 9 rocket and Dragon spacecraft that are in the final stages of preparation, leading to launch in just over an hour from now. As the name suggests, this is the second flight.
මොකක්ද මේ ඕගොල්ලෝ මේ ඕෆන්හයිම මේ ලංකාවට දෙනවද මේ තියටර්ස් වලට මට පොඩ්ඩක් දන්නෙක් කෙනෙක් කියන්නකෝ ඕෆන්හයිම දෙනවද කියලා
will soon become the first Alaskan astronaut. And 2 national astronauts will be the first from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia to fly to the International Space Station, Ali Al-Qarni and Rayana Barnawi. Taken together as a crew, this is the first private mission with private astronauts and astronauts representing non-US nations through direct commercial arrangements. And that's just to name a few. My name is Duke Brady, and I'm a multimedia specialist at Axiom Space, based out of Houston, Texas.
And I'm Kate Tice, Quality Systems Engineering Manager here at SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, California. And as Duke just mentioned, our coverage has now expanded to NASA television, and we would like to welcome NASA's Leah Cheshire from Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas. Hey, Leah.
Hey, Kate, great to see you and Duke, and I'm excited to join as we get closer to launch, so thank you so much for having me. I am here in Mission Control Houston, where the Orbit 3 team is coming on and taking over from the Orbit 2 shift. These teams are monitoring the station and...
යකෝ මං අර මේ කොමෙන්ට් පෝස්ට් එකක් දැම්ම එක්සියම් 2 මෙහෙයුමට සම්බන්ධ එකේ දාලා කමෙන්ට් ඇයලා කියලා එළම සුද්දා
of liftoff. But we've still got some counting down to do before then, so back to you guys at SpaceX.
Thanks, Leah. Now, liftoff time is still holding for 5:37 p.m. Eastern Time, and we're tracking no issues with Falcon 9 or Dragon. The range is green, and the weather is cooperating, as we saw earlier. Really picture-perfect views coming to us from Kennedy Space Center, as you can see there. Now, over the last 3 hours, Axiom astronauts Peggy Whitson, John Schaffner, Ali Al-Qarni, and Rayana Barnawi donned their SpaceX suits in our suit-up room and were then transported to the pad where our crew entered the SpaceX Dragon spacecraft that you see there live on your screen.
And since arriving at that spacecraft, our crew were helped by the closeout engineers to get into their seats, attach their suits to special umbilicals that provide breathing air and communication links to Dragon's.
මෙන්න මේ පොත මේ අනිවාර්යෙන් මේ ඔයාගෙන කියවන්න මම මොකක්කර වෙබ්සයිට් එකකින් තමයි ගෙන්න ගත්තේ මේ මංග තියෙන පොත මේ ලිෆ්ට් ඔෆ් පොතේ තියෙන්නේ මේ මේක ලියලා තියෙන්නේ එරික් බර්ගර් මේ මම නම් මේක මේ 10 වෙනි පාරට 10 වතාවක් විතර කියවලා තියෙනවා දැන් මේ ආයෙ කියවන්න ගත්තා මේකේ තියෙන්නේ ඉලෝන් මස්ක් and the desperate early days මේ at මේ SpaceX එක මේ හදපු හැටි සහ මේ අර ඒගොල්ලොන්ගේ අර රොකට් ඒගොල්ලෝ මුල් කාලේ කොහොමද හැදුවේ එක සහ ඒගොල්ලෝ කාපු කට්ට ගැන තමයි ඒකේ තියෙන්නේ මේ තව ඉතින් ඉලෝන් මස්ක්ගේ මේ තව පොත් සෙට් එකක් තියෙනවා මේ ඒකේ ඒ වගේ තියෙන්නේ මේ අර SpaceX එක ගැන මේ අර ඔක්කොම දේවල් ගැන PayPal හදපු ඒවා ටෙස්ලා එක හදපු එක ටෙස්ලා එක හදපු කතන්දරෙත් මරුවේ
60 hours to her credit.
Dragon SpaceX cycling orbit tank isolation valves to equalize low flow pressure.
නිදිමත පළවාරනවා. Yes.
Dragon copy.
And that was the voice of Peggy Whitson, who also performed hundreds of research experiments on board the ISS.
ඕගොල්ලන්ට ස්ටාර්ෂිප් එක ගැන එහෙම මොනවා හරි ප්‍රශ්න තියෙනවා නම් අහන්න.
Private astronaut John Schaffner,
ස්ටාර්ෂිප් එක
a
කාලා
STEAM
ඉන්නේ.
advocate, business pioneer, and lifelong space enthusiast. He's been a pilot since the age of 17
ස්ටාර්ෂිප්
and
එක ගැන ප්‍රශ්න
participates in
තියෙනවා නම්
extreme
අහන්න.
sports from hang gliding to base jumping to high performance racing. Sounds like a busy guy. John trained as the AX-1 backup pilot, and during this mission plans to invest a lot of his time in STEAM education activities aimed at empowering educators.
And representing the Saudi Space Commission and serving as mission specialist, Ali Al-Qarni is an Air Force captain in the Royal Saudi Air Force. Ali graduated with a Bachelor of Aerospace Science degree in 2013 from King Faisal Air Academy in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Having flown as a fighter
NASA
pilot
Kennedy
for 12
Space
years,
Center එකේ
Ali was selected as an astronaut
මේ
in 2020.
Also
ට්වීට් එකෙන්
representing
ලයිව්
the
එක දෙන්න
Saudi
පටන්
Space
ගත්තා.
Commission and serving as a mission
දැන් කෙලිම ට්වීට්
specialist,
එකෙන් තමයි ලයිව් එක
Rayana
දෙන්නේ.
Barnawi has a master's degree in biomedical sciences from Al Faisal University in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, and a bachelor's degree in biomedical sciences from Otago University in Dunedin, New Zealand. She has been a research lab technician since 2013 in the stem cell and tissue re-engineering program at King Faisal Specialist Hospital and Research Center.
You've seen the vehicle, you've met the crew. Let's send you.
මේ මන්නං වැඩිය ෆිල්ම් බැලුවේ නෑ. නෑ මම ෆිල්මුත් බැලුවා. හැබැයි මම මාරිතර පොත් කියවනවා. මං දවසට කොහොත් පැය 3ක් 4ක් විතර පොත් කියවනවා. ඒ කියන්නේ මට අර ඒක අර පොඩි කාලේ ඉඳලා සීන් එකක් තියෙනවා. ඒ මගේ පොත් කියවෙ නැත්නම් එහෙම නිින්ද යන්නේ නැති එහෙම සීන් එකක් තියෙනවා මගේ. මේ මෙන්ටල් ඩිසෝඩර් එක. මේ අර පොඩි කාලේ අම්මලා එහෙම පුරුදු කරලා තින්නේ මේ පොත් අම්මට සිරි මේ තියෙන විෂන් කන්ට්‍රෝල් සෙන්ටර් එක.
Future of low Earth orbit. NASA's long-term goal is to no longer be the provider.
මේ හැබැයි මේ ෆිල්මුත් බලනවා මම ඊයේ පෙරේද බැලුවා. සෝෂල් නෙට්වර්ක් බැලුවා. Facebook එකේ මේ ස්ටාර්ට්අප් සීන් එක මේ තියෙන සෝෂල් නෙට්වර්ක් බැලුවා. තව බැලුවා ළඟදි බැලුවේ ඒක තමයි. හැබැයි ගොඩක් ඉතින් මං ගොඩක් බලන්නේ බයෝග්‍රැෆි ෆිල්ම් එහෙම තමයි. ඔය ස්ටාර්ට්අප් ගැන තියෙන කවුරු හරි රියල් ලයිෆ් එක ගැන මේක බැලුවා. The Prayer Before Dawn බැලුවා. මේ අරු ඉන්නේ කවුද දන්නා මේ පීකි බ්ලයින්ඩර්ස් එකේ ජෝන් ෂෙල්බි ඉන්නේ. තායිලන්තේ හිරගෙදරක ගහන ගේම් එකක් ගැන තියෙන පට්ටෑගෙන ඒකත් ඇත්ත මිනිස්සෙක් කතා. අපිට චෙනුක ඇවිල්ලා ඉන්නවා. චෙනුක අපේ චෙනුක තමයි අපේ මගේ YouTube මේ අපේ YouTube channel එකේ මේ පළවෙනි වීඩියෝ එක එඩිට් කළේ චෙනුක. චෙනුක මොකද වෙන්නේ? ඔයාලා ඔක්කොම නිදි නෑනේ. යසයි.
In the game, or in other words, investing, so that at the end of the day, the cost to the federal government is less. And that's the way we're going back to the moon and then on to Mars. And we do it also differently is we're going on an international mission. And so, as we have announced, the first crew to go back to the moon in a half century, it has a Canadian astronaut that's part of the crew.
Mm-hmm. And I think also what's great is that we're opening up low Earth orbit.
Vulcan Center Vulcan Center කියන්නේ මේ අර පොඩ්ඩක් ඉන්න මට Vulcan Center කියන සෙනටර් ස්ටේජ් එක තියෙන ඒරියන් 5 රොකට් එක නේද? The Vulcan rocket එක Vulcan Center සෙනටර් ස්ටේජ් එක තියෙන කොහම හරි ඒරියන් 5 රොකට් එකේ. වයි සෙනටර් එකට Vulcan කියලා දැම්මේ කියලා මට පොඩ්ඩක් කියන්න. අන්න චෙනුක මතක් කරන්න කිව්වලු බානාවි අක්කා.
That time, it's time to move on to commercial space stations. We can still what we NASA need to do in low Earth orbit by utilizing the commercial stations. And we've given
UL එකේ අලුත් එක මම දන්නා Vulcan මේ රොකට් එක මේ එතකොට ඒකේ සෙනටර් ස්ටේජ් එක නැහැනේ. ඒගොල්ලෝ ඒකටත් දාලාද? Vulcan scene එක වැඩි බැලුවේ
astronauts into space as this mission is. It also is helping us with our international partnerships because we have 2 Saudis on this trip. but it also will have its first component of its space station, and it's going to dock to the International Space Station.
So a lot of exciting things, as we keep saying, in the years ahead. So I do want to talk to you about, you've been alluding to the Artemis program, the fact that working with these commercial
මේ
companies
රොකට් එකේ නම වල්කන් සෙන්චර් නේද? මට අමතක වුණා. මට හොඳට මතකයි සෙනචර් ස්ටේජ් එක තිබ්බ සීන් එකක් තිබ්බ මත. හරි හරි හරි. රොකට් එකේ නම වල්කන්
We have some 15 partners that have,
Vulcan is
if not
two-stage
or
to orbit
certainly
heavy lift
participating
launch vehicle.
in the International Space Station. And this, of course, is a huge structure, 120 yards long. You think from one goalpost to the other goalpost in a football stadium. That's how big it is. And they are very much, you're seeing the results of that public-private partnership here. Another example is look at the phenomenal success of SpaceX as a means of getting to and from the space station. So when we shut down the space shuttle a dozen years ago, now we rely on a private company to go to
NASA के
the
president
International
मचा
Space Station. In this case, it's SpaceX. In July, it will be Boeing as well.
Any words to the AX2 crew today?
Well, first of all, I wish I were with you. And secondly, Godspeed to all of you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Administrator, and I hope you enjoyed today's launch.
Thanks.
And so, again, we were talking a little bit about the Artemis program. Did you know that NASA and Axiom Space are also working together to design the suits our astronauts
මේ
will wear
වල්කන්
when they land
රොකට්
on
එක මේ දවස්වල මාරයි මේ ටෙස්ටිං වලට මේක යවනවා නේද බෙල්ට් එකට එහෙම මම දැක්ක මේ ඊපෙරේද
This is a prototype of what astronauts will wear when they land on the moon for Artemis 3. While this prototype is black with blue and orange detailing, the real moon
තාපයක් ඉඳලා හුලක සරයි කියලා මිෂන් එක ස්ටොප් කළා
reflect heat and keep astronauts
Okay.
safe from extreme temperatures.
ඒවා කියන්න බෑ
NASA
බ්‍රෝ
selected Axiom Space
අන්තිම
to
තප්පර
design,
වෙනකන් කියන්න බෑ
develop, and certify the suits. They will fit a broad range of crew members, men and women, accommodating at least 90% of the U.S. population. The moon suits worn by Apollo 11 astronauts in 1969 had a bulky life support system. The new Axiom Extravehicular Mobility Units, or AX-EMUs, will have range of motion and flexibility needed to explore the lunar South Pole. They will give astronauts the capability to access, live, and work on the moon. Future versions could even have avionics. Astronauts will start training with the spacesuits later this year. That's a look at your Artemis Moon Minute.
While the International Space Station has been a valuable asset for space research and exploration, the rise of commercial spaceflight is opening new doors. Those benefiting from the new opportunities range from small commercial entities all the way to national space agencies. This expansion of participation in space is enabling a more diverse and inclusive space industry with a much wider range of perspectives, ideas, and expertise. Additionally, the competitive nature of commercial activities means the cost of participating is falling, and there are more participants to share those costs and the risks. Expanding access to space also promotes innovation and scientific and technological progress, benefiting humanity as a whole. For a long time, the conversation has been about someday having private space flights, and someday we'll have private astronauts. And while there's a lot of room to grow from that, that someday is now. Low Earth orbit is more accessible than ever before as space research and technology enter a new era. Companies like Axiom Space are expanding this access, and young space agencies like the Saudi Space Commission now have a path to achieve their goals in low Earth orbit. At Kennedy Space Center is Axiom Space's Director of Digital Strategy, Sonia Gavankar-McKay, and with her is a member of the Saudi Space Commission to talk about their goals for this mission. Sonia?
Thanks so much, Duke. As you mentioned, I'm joined by Ahmed Al Ghafali of the Saudi Space Commission, but also Axiom Space's Chief Revenue Officer, Tejpal Bhatia. And I'm going to jump right in here because we're so close to launch time. This is the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia's second flight into space. The first was in 1985 on the STS-51G. What does this mission mean for the nation and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia?
I believe that the kingdom has gone a long way since 1985. So many satellites have been launched ever since. So many payloads have been developed ever since. A lot of research were conducted related to space. Payloads conducts a lot of components that we've done that could be used for space and other sectors. So that's a long way since that time. And here we are today, just an hour away from this historical mission that will carry 2 Saudi astronauts for the first time to the International Space Station. However, I do believe that it's not only Saudi that has
Vulcan
gone
rocket
a long
static
way.
fire test
I looked at so many research and so many
මොකද
financial forecasts that suggest that
ඒගොල්ලෝ
within
දැන්
the
දවස්
past 20 years,
10කට
60%
විතර
of the
කලින් මේ
investment in space
ප්‍රොපලර් ලෝඩින්
only
ටෙස්ට් එකක්
happened
කළානේ
within the past 2 or 3 years. So there is
ඒක
a momentum
ඒක
and
මොකද
we
උනේ
want to
ඒක
be a part of it.
සක්සස්ද
Tejpa, your efforts with KSA and the efforts that Axiom Space puts into this mission allow for a vision for so much in low Earth orbit. What can Axiom Space really do to help nations like the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and so many others achieve their goals?
Thanks, Sonia. When I think about what we're doing with the kingdom, from the first time I met Ahmed, my definition of the word partner has fundamentally changed and evolved. From when this was an idea and started formulating as a mission to execution, we had to overcome a lot of challenges, and these are things that are being done for the first time in human history. And what I've seen in our relationship is that definition of partnership to overcome those problems and make these things a reality are enormous. And what is happening in this situation is while we are enabling the kingdom to get to the International Space Station, the kingdom is enabling us to see our vision of providing access to all nations in the world and increasing the cadence of astronauts from every nation to go up into low Earth orbit.
That's wonderful. This astronaut program is new for the kingdom. How has this process evolved through this year? Are you seeing that it's exponentially growing like the infrastructure is?
Of course. I mean, when we started this program about a year ago with this collaboration with Axiom, the first thing that we started is for the process of the selection, which is one of the main and major milestones to achieve any successful program like that. So we built our program for a selection based on the best practices that we developed together based on the benchmarks from NASA, for instance. However, that's only a part of it. Then comes to, if you want to build a program, you want to make sure that all the enablers are in place, especially when it comes to the infrastructure and also for the right people with the right competencies to be able to run such a complex program.
අනිද්ද
So we've
තියෙනවා
been
මේ
building for the past year, utilizing this project as a
රොකට් ලැබ් එකේ
vehicle
ඉලෙක්ට්‍රෝන රොකට්
to
ලොන්චර්
train, to get those
මේ
people
මොකද්ද
with the right competencies, not only to
ඒගොල්ලෝ
do the training for the
ටොපික්ස්
astronauts,
මේ
but
සැටලයිට්
also you wanna
කන්සල්ටේෂන් එකේ මේ
train for the media, for the finance, for the legal, for the R&D, for the integration. All of it is a part of this secret recipe to get a successful program.
We just
And
heard
this
from
is
Mission
only the
Command
start.
Astro
So we're
Brigade
going to
that
keep
they
building and enhancing this
go
program
for
to
launch.
get to the point that is optimum.
Excellent. Tejpal, as we have only about 1 minute left, what's it like
Confirmation එක
working with
දීලා go for
individuals
launch කියලා
versus nations? What's the difference in that relationship like
දැනට
for Axiom
confirm
Space?
launch
so,
එක
you know, trying to compare a private astronaut with a national
විනාඩි
astronaut is like
48යි
asking me to compare my children. Luckily, I only have one child, so I'm prepared to do this. Let's start
ප්ලේන්
with
ටිකක්
what's
හදාගෙන
the
එන්න
same.
බෝයි
Each of these individuals on this mission right now are pioneers. Very few people in human history have been to the International Space Station. Today, we're going to see 3 more join. And each individual represents their country
මොකද මම මේ
and
කීකීටියේ මේ
humanity, and they're going to
අනිද්ද තියෙනවා රොකට් ලැබ් එකේ ඉලෙක්ට්‍රෝන රොකට් ලොන්ච් එකක් මේ අර ඒගොල්ලොන්ගේ ටොපික්ස් සැටලයිට් කන්සල්ටේෂන් එකේ මේ අන්තිම ටොපික් සැටලයිට් දෙක ලොන්ච් කරනවා ඔගොල්ලෝ ඒක වීඩියෝ එක අනිවාර්යෙන් බාන්න ගිහිල්ලා මේ තියෙන මෙන්න මේකේ තියෙන්නේ ඒක ඊට පස්සේ මේ රොකට් එකලු මේ වීඩියෝ එක බලන්න. පර්සවියරන්ස් රෝවර් එක ගැන පට්ටම ටෙක්නිකල් වීඩියෝ එකක්. පුදුම දුකක් වින්දා යාළුවනේ ඔක එඩිට් කරන්න. මේ ඊට පස්සේ අද දැම්ම මේකේ ඔගලොන්ට කියන්න නෑ මං සාමාන්‍යයෙන් ඉතින් මොකද්ද තියෙන්නේ කියලා අද කියන්නම් පවුනේ. මේ ඒකේ තියෙන්නේ පෝට් කැනවරල් මේ නාවික බරායේ තියෙන භූමියට කට්ටිය හෝගාලා ස්පේස් කම්පැනිස් මේ කන්ට්‍රැක්ට් සයින් කරන සීන් එකකුයි අලුතෙන්ම ඇවිල්ලා තියෙන ස්පේස් කම්පැනි එකක්. මේ SpaceX Virgin Galactic ඒ වගේ සීන් එකකට මේ ඒ ස්පේස් කම්පැනි එක මොකක්ද කියලා තමයි මේ කරුණු දෙක ගැන වැඩියෙන්ම කතා කරන්න තමයි මේ වීඩියෝ එක හදලා දෙන්නේ. අනිවාර්යෙන් බලන්න. කියන්නේ නැහැ මොකක්ද ස්පේස් කම්පැනි එක කියලා ගිහිල්ලා බලන්න. ඊට පස්සේ මේ වීඩියෝ එකේ තියෙනවා ස්ටාර්ෂිප් ලොන්ච් එක දැන් අපි බැලුවනේ. ස්ටාර්ෂිප් ලොන්ච් එක බැලුවට පස්සේ ඒකේ වුණ දේවල් ගැන සෑහෙන කට්ටිය එක ඔපිනියන්ස් ගෙනාවා. මොකක් මේක තමයි වෙලා ඇත්තේ මේක තමයි. ඊට පස්සේ ඉලෝන් මස්ක් මේ ට්විටර් එකේ කරපු මේ වොයිස් chat එකකදී මේ කියලා තිබ්බා ඇත්තට මොකක්ද උනේ එහෙම කියලා ගොඩක් විස්තර වගේක් දීලා තිබ්බා. ඒ විස්තර වලින් තමයි මේක හැදුවේ. ස්ටාර්ෂිප් OTF එකේ දුන දේ. ස්ටාර්ෂිප් රොකට් එක දියත් කරන්න කොහොමද? ඔයාලා අනිවාර්යෙන් මෙන්න මේ වීඩියෝ එක නම් බලන්න. මේක තමයි මේ ස්ටාර්ෂිප් එක රොකට් එක ලොන්ච් කරන්න කලින් තියෙන කම්ප්ලෙක්ස් මේ ප්‍රොසෙස් එක මොකක්ද කියලා තමයි මේ වීඩියෝ එකේ තියෙන්නේ. ඒකත් පට්ටම ටෙක්නිකල් වීඩියෝ එකක්. ඕගොල්ලෝ මාර මම කියන්නේ නැහැ. ඉතින් මං කියන්නේ හොඳයි අනිත් ඒවාට වැඩිය මං එතනින් හැර මුකුත් කියන්නේ නෑ අනිය. නැත්තම් මම පුම්බ කරනවා කියන්නේ. මේක තමයි පුතේ channel එකේ වැඩිම views ගිහිල්ලා තියෙන්නේ fighter jet එක F-22 Raptor එක. ඊට පස්සේ මේ mission juice මේක තමයි අර Ariane 5 rocket එකෙන් launch කරපු juice satellite මේ space craft එක ගැන තියෙන්නේ. සහ මේ rocket launch එක ගැන මේ තියෙන්නේ Starship rocket එක launch කරපු දවසේ පැය දෙකක් ඇතුළත හදලා දාපු වීඩියෝ එක. මේ මුල් කාලේ වීඩියෝස් මාස 5කට කලින් දාලා මේ වීඩියෝස් දෙක තමයි අපේ චැනල් එක එඩිට් කළේ. මේවට views 60යි 40යි මරු වෙයි. ඔයගොල්ලෝ ගිහිල්ලා බලන්න ඉතින්. ඒවා අදටත් එක්ස්පයර් වෙච්ච ඒවා නෙමෙයි ඉතින් හොඳයි ඒවා.
Are there any questions? Hearing no questions, launch control, you may proceed with arming the crew arm for movement.
We're go to proceed with
Crew
propellant
access
load.
arm retraction has
And
started.
the crew access arm, Kate, is going to begin retracting. We're getting into that next dynamic phase where a lot of events start happening over the next 10 minutes.
SpaceX එකෙන් කිව්වා.
Now, while we wait for the arm to begin moving, currently Falcon 9 Dragon continue to be go. Obviously, we've completed the pull. The range continues
Boost
to go
9 එකේ
for launch.
updates
Been
ගැන
monitoring clearance area around the
මේ
pad.
ස්ක්‍රිප්ට් අම්මට සිරි මෙන්න
There
මේක අයින්
goes the
වෙනවා.
arm beginning to move. The view from on top of the fixed service structure. And the weather continues to be acceptable for launch as we get ever closer.
පෑඩ් ඩාම් එක අයින් වෙනවා.
Nice view from the camera inside the white room. The arm moves away from Dragon.
පෑඩ් ඩාම් එක අයින් වෙනවා. අඩේ ඒක වේගෙන් අයින් වෙනවනේ. මේ ක්‍රූඩ් මිෂන් එකත් මාත් වෙන කාලෙකින් මාත් මේ බූස්ට
The clock
9 එකේ
continues to
අප්ඩේට්ස්
the clock
කියන්නේ
continues to tick down. We're
අප්ග්‍රේඩ්ස්
now at T minus 42 minutes.
100කට වැඩිය කරලා
on the
තියෙනවලු
dot.
බූස්ට 7 එකට වැඩිය
As you just heard there, that
ඒකෙන්
crew access arm
ගොඩක්
is now completely
මේජ
stowed.
අප්ඩේට්ස්
It is now in
තියෙනවලු
the launch
මම
position.
මේ
Of course,
ඒව ගැන ලොකු
necessary
රිසර්ච්
in
එකක් කරන
order to
ගමන්
clear
ඉන්නේ
the way
මේ
for Falcon 9 to lift
මං
off.
කොහොමත් සාමාන්‍ය වීඩියෝ එකක් හදන්න කලින්
Now, next up, we will
ඉන්
hear
ඩීටේල්
we'll hear the
රිසර්ච්
call
එකක්
out. The
කරනවා
launch escape system
ඊට පස්සේ
is going to be
තමයි
armed,
මේ
and
වීඩියෝ
from
එක
there we'll hear
හොඳට
that
මට
Falcon 9
සැටිස්ෆයි
propellant
කියලා
mode
හිතෙන
will
තරම්
also begin.
ෆැක්ට්ස් හොයාගත්තට පස්සේ තමයි මං කරන්නේ නැත්තම් මං කරන්නේ නැහැ වීඩියෝ එක
Close visors and arm launch escape system.
තව ටිකකින් වැටෙනවා
Copy. Go for section 6.
We saw our AX2 crew members exit the brand new suit up room located in the Falcon Support Building just about 3 hours ago. They also got their tablets.
SpaceX Dragon. Visors are closed, and we're arming the launch escape system now.
Those tablets provide them with all the information they'll need for the mission. You see them attached to their left legs.
බාන
After
හවියක්ක
that
බය
point,
වෙලා
the
ඉන්නේ
crew
මචං
took one last ride in the Teslas to launch pad 39A, ascended the fixed service structure, signed the white wall, and ingressed into Dragon. After getting buckled in, the spacecraft hatch was closed, and the closeout technicians cleared the pad, leaving just the crew members inside the Dragon vehicle.
All right, so as we heard the call out, we are arming the launch escape system, which is a system that basically gives the crew options, a pathway to safety through
මෙයාලා
all phases
ඩිස්ටාර්ෂිප්
to
එක්කන
orbit.
ප්‍රශ්න තියෙනවා නම් මේ අහන්න
We take every measure possible to ensure that the crew has options. Safety is paramount. So there we just got that confirmation that that launch escape system is now armed. So let's take a look at the teams that are actually working together to make sure this mission is a success. SpaceX is operating out of 2 control rooms today. There on your screen, a live view of our launch control in firing room 4 at Cape Canaveral. This team is responsible for monitoring Falcon 9 throughout the countdown and launch. Second, we have mission control here at SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, California. This team in mission control is responsible for close monitoring of the crew and Dragon every step of the way
යකෝ
as
මෙච්චරලා
the
එක්සෑම්
spacecraft
එකවත් ඉඳගෙන
orbits
ඉඳලා
the
නෑ යකෝ
planet along its customized flight path. On console or headset, there are a number of key positions who are monitoring the health of the vehicle and crew.
මේ තියෙන
The mission
SpaceX mission
director,
control center
that person is responsible for mission success, and they are in charge of the room. Today's mission director is Ken Gamerick. Other positions
අද
are
mission director
focused
Ken
on things
Magaric
like
ලු
software, propulsion, navigation, avionics,
Thumbs up.
life support systems, and communications with ground
Thumbs up
segments,
to
as
Ken
we've heard
Magaric.
those kind of called out throughout the day so far.
Respect.
You'll also hear a specific person dedicated to communicating with the AX2 crew. They are the Crew Operations Responsible Engineer, or CORE, C-O-R-E. Today's SpaceX CORE is Arthur Berrialt. We've heard him a number of times through the launch countdown. The SpaceX team members will also rotate and hand off coverage to ensure that we have people on console 24/7 for the crew and Dragon for the entire duration of the mission, including all the way through splashdown.
And for Axiom Space, the teams in Houston are utilizing Axiom Mission Control Center, an officially certified control center. From this secure facility, teams have live access to voice, video, and data from the ISS and can work.
සුපර් හෙවි එකේ එන්ජින් 33 ස්ටාර්ට් කරන පිළිවෙල සහ ටයිමින් ගැන දන්නවද? මේ එන්ජින් 33ම ස්ටාර්ට් කරන්න ගන්න එකම වෙලාවේ මේකට අවශ්‍ය ස්ටාර්ට්අප් ගෑසස් ඇතුලේ එලියෙන් තියෙන එන්ජින් 20ට එළිය ක්වික් ඩිස්කනෙක්ට් ආම්ස් 20න් මේ ඒ කියන්නේ ලොන්ච් මවුන්ට් එකේ තියෙන ක්වික් ඩිස්කනෙක්ට් ආම්ස් 20න් ස්ටාර්ට්අප් ගෑසස් දෙනවා. ඇතුලේ තියෙන 13 ආයෙ ඔන් කරන්න ඒ කියන්නේ එළියේ තියෙන වටේ තියෙන මේ එන්ජින් 20 ස්ටාර්ට් කරන්න වෙන්නේ එක වතාවයි. ඒ හින්දා ඒකට අවශ්‍ය ඒ කියන්නේ එතනදී ඔන් කරාම ආයෙ ඔන් කරන්න වෙන්නේ නැහැ. ඒ හින්දා ඒකට අවශ්‍ය ස්ටාර්ට්අප් ගෑසස් එළියේ ලොන්ච් මවුන්ට් එකෙන් ඇති ක්වික් ඩිස්කනෙක්ට් ආම්ස් වලින් එන්ජින් එකට දෙනවා. ඊට පස්සේ ඒ 20යි ඊට පස්සේ ඇතුලේ තියෙන 13 තියෙනවනේ ඉනර් සර්කල් එකේ. ඒ ධාතුන ගිම්බල් කරන්න පුළුවන්. ඒකෙන් තමයි thrust vector control කරලා ඒක මේ ට්‍රැජෙක්ටර් එකට ගේන්න එහෙම ඉනර් සර්කල් එකේ තියෙන ධාතුනෙන්. ඒක තමයි ගිම්බල් කරන්න පුළුවන් ධාතුන. මේ ඕක ඔය ගිම්බල් එකේ සහ ඔය ඒ සීන් එකක් ඉඳනේ ඔය මේ එදා FTS එක මේ ට්‍රිගර් වුනේ. එතකොට මං කී හිටියේ හරි. ඊට පස්සේ ඒ එන්ජින් 33ම ස්ටාර්ට් අප් වෙන්න ගන්න එකවර. ඊට පස්සේ වටේ තියෙන එන්ජින් 20 සහ ඇතුලේ තියෙන එන්ජින්ස් 13ම ඉග්නයිට් වුණාද කියලා බලනවා. ඉග්නයිට් වුණාද කියලා බලලා එතනින් මේ ඒක මේ ස්ටාර්ෂිප් එකේ ෆ්ලයිට් කම්පියුටර් එකෙන් තමයි ඒක චෙක් කරන්නේ. එතනින් සිග්නල් එකක් එනවා. එන්ජින් 33ටම හරියට වැඩ කරනවද කියලා සහ ඒ අවම ත්‍රස්ට් ලොන්ච් කරන්න ඕනේ අවම ත්‍රස්ට් එක හරියටම ආවද කියලා සිග්නල් එකක් ගන්නවා. සිග්නල් එකක් අරගෙන ස්ටාර්ෂිප් එකෙන් ග්‍රවුන්ඩ් කන්ට්‍රෝල් සිස්ටම් එකට ඒක යවනවා. දැන් හරි බඩු තමයි දැන් ඔක්කොම ත්‍රස්ට් එක හරි ගාන් ලෙවල් එකට ඇවිල්ලා තියෙන්නේ. දැන් ලොන්ච් කරන්න කාලේ හරි කියලා. ඕගොල්ලන් මතකද දන්නේ දැන් අන්තිමට මේ තමයි කයින් කරලා තියෙන්නේ. ඒ ෆ්ලයිට් එකේ තප්පර 8ක් එන්ජින් ඉග්නිෂන් එක වෙලා තප්පර 8ක් ගිහිල්ලා තියෙනවා මේ රොකට් එක ලොන්ච් වෙන්න. ඒක මේ ඒකට හේතුව තමයි ඒගොල්ලොන්ට මේ ඒගොල්ලෝ හරියටම චෙක් කරලා තියෙනවා වටේ මේ අවුටර් සර්කල් එකේ තියෙන එන්ජින් 20 හරියටම හරිම ත්‍රස්ට් එකට වැඩ කරනවද එහෙම කියලා සහ ඒගොල්ලෝ ඊට පස්සේ අඳුරගෙන තිබ්බා එන්ජින්ස් 3ක් ඩවුන් කියලා. මේ ඒ වුණාට ඒගොල්ලෝ ඒක ලොන්ච් කළා ඉතින්. මේ එහෙම තමයි කේස් එක සිද්ධ වෙන්නේ. ඔයගොල්ලෝ ඔයා ගිහිල්ලා අනිවාර්යෙන් මේ මචං මේ මගේ අර ස්ටාර්ෂිප් එක දියත් කිරීමට ඇති මේ පෙර ඇති ඉංජිනේරුමේ ක්‍රියාවලිය කියලා වීඩියෝ එකක් තියෙනවා. ඒක අනිවාර්යෙන් බලන්න. ඒකේ ඔක්කොම කියලා දෙනවා. තව විනාඩි 35. பிக் ஃபேன் சஞ்சய் அவில்ல. ஹலோ சஞ்சய், வணக்கம். வணக்கம் தம்பி. நீ நீ சாப்பிடுங்க.
Thank you for joining us, Dr. Fogarty and Dr. Yerkeda from TRISH, the Translational Research Institute for Space Health. Let's start with an easy question. What exactly is TRISH?
Yes, TRISH. TRISH is a consortium between Baylor College of Medicine, MIT, and Caltech.
Every day astronaut එකෙන් පටන් ගත්තා. Every day අපි every day astronaut. මුගේ මේක දාන්න බෑ මේක සිද්ධු යනවා පටන්.
Which is, we'll talk about that a little bit more in a second, maybe once they're in coast phase or something. But for now, I actually want to pop us on over to our pre-launch preview. A reminder, anytime there's a mission coming up, I get so many of the same questions. Our little website, everydayastronaut.com, can answer probably all of those questions that you guys ask fairly often. So for this is the Axiom Space Mission 2. It's flying out of Falcon 9 Block 5. So this is taking off today, May 22nd. And you can see here by my clock over there that we are 32 minutes and 40 seconds to lift off. But it's going to be taking off at 21:37.
Thumbs up to our life savior.
5:37 p.m. local.
Every day astronaut.
Mission name for this.
Respect.
This is the Axiom Space Mission 2. It's the second fully private mission to the International Space Station. Pretty exciting. The launch provider, this is SpaceX is the launch provider. They're the rocket and the Dragon capsule on top is all SpaceX. But the customer is actually Axiom.
ඒක සංජයට මුකුත් කියන්නව සංජයට තරහ යනවා මේ සංජයෝ මීටියට එන ඩයල්ල.
Together, you know. The rocket for this is the Falcon 9 Block 5. This is booster 1080-1. This is the first launch of this Falcon 9 rocket, which is, we're so used to seeing them fly, you know, reuse boosters all the time. So it is unusual to have a brand new booster out there. So this one is out there, and we're going to see it its first launch ever with people on top of it. Very exciting. And also it's exciting too because this is from Launch Complex 39A. Of course, the hollowed ground where the Saturn V took all the humans that went to the moon, launched off from this launch pad. More than 50% of the space shuttle missions came from 39A.
සාමාන්‍ය SL rocket එකේ 120 millisecond gap එක මම දන්නවා. මේ 120 millisecond gap එක මම scene එක දන්නවා. Starship එකට මං එහෙම එකක් ඇත්තටම මේ දන්නේ නැහැ. කියන්නේ එහෙම නෑ මං හිතන්නේ. මම කොහොම හරි මම දන්නේ නැහැ. මම engine scene එක හොයලා බලලා තියෙනවා හොඳට. හැබැයි මට තාම මේ එහෙම scene එකක් හම්බුන්නේ නැහැ. මම දන්න විදිහට මම NSF එකෙන් මාකස් හවුස් එකෙන් කියලා තියෙන විදිහට නම් Starship එකේ engine 33ම sequence වෙන්න එකවර.
Space Station at 51.6 degrees. Splashed down 219 days ago. Will they be attempting to recover the first stage? Yes, as we've mentioned a few times. Where will this be landing? This is the fun thing. This is landing back at land. They have the performance margins in the Falcon 9 now, and they've pushed it hard enough in the past to know that they can do this unique profile they're doing that's safe for humans. It's shallow enough for humans, and then they're really going to be pushing that booster on the way back. Once it's let go of the humans, at that point, the booster, if they were to happen to lose a booster, it wouldn't be the end of the world.
සංජයට මේ සිංහල මේ මේ කතා කරන්නේ හොඳ පුළුවන් අපිත් එක්ක මේ එයාට මේ කියවන්න බෑ සිංහල අකුරු තේරුම් ගන්න බෑ දැන් ඔබට පුළුවන් ද කියපන්කෝ දෙමළ කතා කරන්න දෙමළ කියවන්න පුළුවන් ද ඔබට ඌට බහින්න දාගෙන
There's no fairings on this vehicle, so yes, or they're not available at A for these fairings. The second private mission to the International Space Station, the 226th Falcon 9 launch, 194th booster landing, 120th consecutive landing, 35th launch for SpaceX in 2023, 65th SpaceX launch from LC-39A, and 73rd orbital launch attempt of 2023. That is wild. So we are, let's see, we're almost halfway, well, not even halfway through the year yet, and we're already at 35 launches. They're definitely on track to do 80 to 90 launches. Maybe they'll get to that 100 they're aiming for. So, yeah, absolutely crazy. So, again, anytime you guys need to know anything about upcoming missions, if you want to see the milestones like this and all these things, these are just on our website here at every...
දෙවල Falcon 9
spent 6
Falcon 9 rocket එක කාසාවටත් ෆේල් මේ බොරු කියන්න ඕනේ නෑනේ ඔය පොඩි නිකන් අර කුරිරු සතුටක් තියෙනවා මේ Falcon 9 rocket එක මගේ ක්‍රූඩ් එක ගන්න මේ ඔය Starlink satellite වගේ නිකන් මේ usually යවන rocket launcher පොඩ ෆේල් වෙනවා බා නාසයි okay මේ එහෙම ඉතින් ප්‍රාර්ථනා කරන්න හොඳ නෑ අර පොඩ්ඩයි වුණාට අර හයිප් එක එනවා එතකොට ඉතින් ඒකට ආයෙත් පොඩ්ඩක් ඔබ ඉතින් අර රෙකෝඩ්ස් එහෙම කැඩෙනවනේ අර එක දිගට ලෑන්ඩ් කරන සීන් ඔක්කොම ක්‍රූඩ් ඒවට මොකුත් වෙන්න හොඳ නෑ අම්බෝ
First time ever. I love it. I love that there's more and more access to space from people from all around the world. If you guys want to read more about this, of course, check out our website at everydayastronaut.com/pre-launch preview. And everyone thank Trevor Sesnick in chat for writing this article and keeping not only you guys up to date, but also keeping me up to date, because it takes a whole team to do all this. So everydayastronaut.com, click on upcoming launches, and you can read through our pre-launch previews as they are coming. Let's pull up the stream here, and they're in the middle of one of these things. But I'll take a few more of your questions, and yeah, we have and remember, of course, I feel like I always want to say this. I want to reiterate. We'll take as many good questions as we can today. I'll get through as many as I can. You don't have to do a super chat or anything. Our mods are pulling good questions into my queue here, so we can, so I can answer questions as best as I can. So thank you guys for asking great questions, and of course, thank you for the generous tips. But I'm going to listen in here with you guys. Let's see where they're at.
They dedicate their influence to increasing literacy and interest in science, especially for young girls, which is awesome.
You know, Emily and Kelly are both moms to young girls, so it's safe to say that they have front row seats to knowing what is cool and inspiring. Now, speaking of front row seats, all morning and afternoon. Now, let's take a moment to get acquainted with the vehicles that you see there on your screen. The Falcon 9 rocket with a Dragon spacecraft on top together stand at about 215 feet, which is almost 30 feet taller than the Leaning Tower of Pisa in Italy. Falcon 9 is a reusable two-stage rocket, which means it's kind of like two rockets in one. The first stage
මේ ඔයගොල්ලොන්ට මොනහරි මේ
the first stage is the bottom two-thirds of the
interesting
vehicle.
topics ඒ කියන්නේ
Today's booster is flying for the first
කැමති
time. You can think of it as
topics
the
මොනහරි තියෙනවා නම්
large
කියන්න
bottom
මම
white portion and
videos
the
කරන්නම්
middle
ඒවට
black portion. So that's what we mean when
recorded
we say
videos.
the booster. The first stages were responsible for accelerating Falcon and Dragon through the Earth's atmosphere and into space. In order to do that, it has 9 Merlin engines at the bottom of the stage. Prior to liftoff, the Falcon 9 first stage is
Stage 2 cryohelium load has started.
actually and currently underway, is being loaded up with nearly 1 million pounds of fuel and liquid oxygen. The Merlin engines on the first stage are optimized for sea level. They achieve 190,000 pounds of thrust during ascent and descent. The first stage accelerates the vehicle through the Earth's atmosphere into space and then separates from the rest of the rocket about 2.5 minutes into flight. From there, the first stage will head over to
අනාගතයේ ස්ටාර්ෂිප් වලින් මිනිස්සු ගෙනියන්න පර්මිෂන් දෙයිද? ලෑන්ඩ් කරද්දී එන්ජින් ෆේල් වුණොත් BS තමයි අම්මට සිරියෝ. මම හිතන විදිහට ඔය දැන් මාස් මේ කියන්නේ ස්ටාර්ෂිප් එකේ ෆයිනල් ටාගට් එක අඟහරු වලට ගිහිල්ලා ලෑන්ඩ් කරලා ඒකට මිනිස්සු ගෙනහිල්ලා එහෙම ගන්නනේ. මට හිතන විදිහට ඔය සීන් එකට තව අවුරුදු 15ක් යයි. අවුරුදු 15කට වැඩි යනවා අනිවාර්යෙන්. මං හිතන්නේ මේ පේස් එකේ SpaceX එක මේන්ටේන් කරන මේ පේස් එකේ ගියත් අනිවාර්යෙන් 15 years එහා යනවා. එයි දන්නවද? මං කියන්නේ ඉස්සල්ලාම තාම ඉන්නේ අපි ෆස්ට් ඕබිටල් ටෙස්ට් ෆ්ලයිට් එකේ. හරිද? අපි ඒකත් තාම ෆේල්නේ. අපි ඒකෙන් ගොඩක් දේවල් ඩේටා ගත්තා. ඒක වෙනම කතන්දරයක්. හරිද? අපි ඉස්සල්ලාම ඕබිටල් ටෙස්ට් ෆ්ලයිට් එක සිද්ධ කරලා ඕක ඕබිට් කරන්න ඕනේ. හරිද? එතකොට ඕබිටල් ටෙස්ට් ෆ්ලයිට් එකේදී මේ අපි බූස්ට් එකයි ස්ටාර්ෂිප් එකයි ලෑන්ඩ් කරන්න එක මුහුදට බස්සනවා. හරිද? ඊට පස්සේ දැන් ඒක හරි කියා කියමුකෝ. ඊට පස්සේ අපි ඊළඟ ඇටෙම්ප්ට් එක කරන්න ඕනේ බූස්ට් එක සහ ස්ටාර්ෂිප් එක්ක බූස්ට් එක අල්ලලා ස්ටාර්ෂිප් එක මුහුදට දානවා. එක්කෝ ස්ටාර්ෂිප් එක ලෑන්ඩ් කරලා ඒ දෙකෙන් එකක් වෙනවා. ඊට පස්සේ දෙකම ලෑන්ඩ් කරන්න ඕනේ. දැන් දෙකයි ඊට පස්සේ තුන්වෙනි ඇටෙම්ප්ට් එකෙන් දෙකම ලෑන්ඩ් කරන්න බලයි. මං හිතන්නේ බොහෝ දුරට දෙවෙනි ඇටෙම්ප්ට් එකෙන් ඒගොල්ලෝ දෙකම රිකවර් කරන්න බලන්නේ නැති. එතන මොකද ලොකු ප්‍රෝග්‍රස් එකක් තියෙන්න ඕනේ. හරිද? ඊට පස්සේ තුන්වෙනි එකෙන් ඒක. ඊට පස්සේ ඕබිට් කරයි. හරිද? ඊට පස්සේ ඕක ඕබිට් කරලා ඕකෙන් ඉස්සලාම ස්ටාර්ලින්ක් සැටලයිට් වගේ යවන්න ගනී ලෝ අර්ත් ඔබිට් එකට. ඊපස්සේ ඒකෙන් ටෙස්ට් කරලා ඔන්න මේක කරනවා. ඊට පස්සේ තව අවුරුදු 2 3 4ක් ගියාට පස්සේ ඕක ඔහොම මේ ටෙස්ට් කරලා අඟහරු වලට යවනවානේ. අඟහරු වලට යන්න මාස 7ක් යනවා. හරිද? මේ කිලෝමීටර් මිලියන 163 ගානක් එහයින් තමයි අඟහරු තියෙන්නේ. කොහොම හරි යන්න මාස 7ක් යනවා. යන්න මාස 7ක් යනවා වගේ නෙමේ. අඟහරු වලට යන්න ලොන්ච් වින්ඩෝ එකක් ඕපන් වෙන්නේ මාස 26කට සැරයක්. මාස 26කට සැරයක් තමයි ලොන්ච් වින්ඩෝ එකක් ඕපන් වෙන්නේ. මේ ඒ නිසා අපිට හැම මාස 26කටම සැරයක් තමයි යවන්න වෙන්නේ ස්ටාර්ෂිප් එකක් හෝ කුමන ස්පේස් ක්‍රාෆ්ට් එකක් හරි මඟහරුවට යවන්න වෙන්නේ මාස 26කට සැරයක්. නැත්තම් හෙන වටයක් ගහලා යන්න වෙනවා. එතකොට මං හිතන්නේ මාස 7කට වැඩි කාලයක් හරි මං හිතන්නේ එහෙම යන්න බෑ. හරි මොකක් හරි සීන් එකක් තියෙනවා. හරිද? එතකොට මාස් වලට ගිහිල්ලා ඕක ලෑන්ඩ් කරනවා. හරිද? මාස් වලට ගිහිල්ලා ලෑන්ඩ් කරාට පස්සේ ඕකේ ඩේටා අරගෙන ඕනේ. හරිද? මාස් වලට ගිහිල්ලා පළවෙනි පාර ලෑන්ඩ් කරන්න පුළුවන් ඒව දන්නේ මට හිතන විදිහට ඔය ඔක්කොම ඇටෙම්ප්ට්ස් කරලා එද්දි 15 years යයි ඔයාට මොකද හිතෙන්නේ? ඔයාට හිතෙන්නේ කොච්චර කල්යයි කියලාද? සංජය රවි කැල්ටු මොකද මචං ඔයාට කැල්ටු අමාරුද? කැල්කියුලස් 2 අපි කළා. හරිද? මේ සංජය මේ මැසේජ් එකක් දාන්නම් ඔයාලට. පොඩි මේකක් තියෙනවා කියන. මේ සෙට් එක ට්‍රිප් එකක් වගේ එකටද යන්නේ? yes ට්‍රිප් එකක් තමයි යන්නේ. වාට හිතෙන්නේ අඩුම 2035 මට 2040 තමයි හිතුනේ. අවුලක් නැහැ. මට 2040 තමයි හිතෙන්නේ. මේ යන පේස් එක මේන්ටේන් කළොත් මොකද ඔය හැම දෙයකටම පේස් එක බලපානවනේ. දැන් මේ ස්පේස් එක්ස් එක මේ යල්ලන ස්පේස් එකට ගියොත් 2035 දී කරයි කියලාත් මට හිතෙනවා. හැබැයි මේ අර ලීගල් පැත්ත තමයි මම ගොඩක් කල්පනා කරන්නේ. දැන් අපි හිතුවට මේ බූස්ටර් දැන් අර ස්ටාර්ෂිප් ලොන්ච් ඇටෙම්ප්ට් එක සිද්ධ කරලා මාස 3-4ක් යද්දී දැන් ඒගොල්ලෝ අර වෝටර් කූල්ඩ් ස්ලීප් පෙල්ට් බූස්ටර් 9 ෂිප් 25 ඔක්කොම දැන් හදලා හදාගෙන සිංගල හදනවනේ ඔබිටර් ලොන්ච් මවුන්ට් එකක් දැන් රිපෙයාර් කරනවා. මේ ඒත් ඒගොල්ලන්ට ලීගල් පර්මිෂන් එක හම්බෙන්න සෑහෙන කල්යයි. මොකද දන්නවද? මේ FA එකෙන් කියලා තිබ්බලු ස්ටාර්ෂිප් ලොන්ච් ඇටෙම්ප්ට් එකේදී එක හැතැම්මයක් වපසරියකට මේ ඔය ගල් කෑලි අනම්මනම් විසි වුණාට අවුලක් නැහැ කියලා. හැබැයි බලද්දී හැතැම්ම 5කට එහා අරයකින් එහා පැත්ත රේඩියස් එකකින් එහා පැත්තේ තියෙන තැන්වලටත් ගල් කෑලි හිම විසි වෙලා තියෙනවා. එන කොන්ක්‍රීට් කෑලි හිම. ඒ වගේම පරිසරයටත් පොඩි සීන් එකක් ගිහිල්ලා තියෙනවා. ඒ හින්දා FA ලයිසන් එක පන්න ගන්න පොඩ්ඩක් අමාරු වෙයි මේ පාර. පර්මිෂන් එක ගන්න. We are ahead of 18 minutes and 52 seconds.
In Houston for launch, and Flight Director Marcos Flores will lead teams for docking tomorrow. A reminder that launch today will take about 16 hours to get to the station. To Zenith or space-facing port scheduled just before 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time tomorrow. Once Dragon is fully docked to the station, the teams here in Houston will assist the Axiom Space and Space Station astronauts with leak checks as they work to open hatches on both Dragon and inside the station's pressurized mating adapter. We expect hatch open to take place about 2 hours after docking. That's it for us here in Mission Control Houston, and I will send it back over to the team in Hawthorne. Duke?
Thanks, Leah. And all of that is set to begin in just over 18 minutes from right now. And I got to say, the energy around here is certainly rising. As Leah just mentioned, once the crew launches, they will spend the next 16 hours in Dragon, catching up to the International Space Station. That time on orbit and in Dragon will feature a variety of tasks, including some planned photography, but about half of that time is scheduled for sleep.
මං අන්තිවර ලයිව් එකක් කරද්දි මගේ YouTube channel එකේ subscribers ලා හිටියේ 80 ගාණක්.
And technology demonstrations. Understanding of dangerous thunderstorms, as well as DNA research with nanomaterials and reprogramming skin cells to help create regenerative medicines. Wow.
Kennedy Space center Starship orbital launch mount එක chopstick කොටයි. chopstick කොටයිද? අඩ ඒක මං සීන් එක දන්නේ නැහැ. ඒක මං දන්නේ නැහැ මචං. ඒක බම් බාන්න ඕන. හැබැයි එහෙම කොට වෙන්න ඉතින් නෑ. කොහොම හරි මේ කොහොම හරි ස්ටාර්ෂිප් එක ඉදිරි දශකය ඇතුළත මීටර් 10කින් ස්ට්‍රෙච් වෙනවලු. මීටර් 10ක් තව උස වෙනවා කියලා කියනවා. චොප්ස්ටික් කෝම්ස් කොට සීන් එක දන්නේ නැහැ.
Time. So just 16 and a half minutes from
Stage 2
now.
LOX load has begun.
That call, they're telling us that the liquid oxygen on stage 2 is now beginning, or the liquid oxygen on is beginning to be loaded onto stage 2. That will wrap up around T minus 2 minutes. Now, I was talking about the instantaneous launch window because we are essentially chasing the space station. We're trying to catch up to it. It means that in order for everything to be precisely lined up in terms of how much propellant we're taking on board, and obviously we don't want to take too much because everything about space is weight. How much weight are you taking? And so we want to optimize our path to the International Space Station. And so we basically have that instantaneous moment to take off.
All right, and that moment is coming soon. And as we approach the final moments of our countdown to launch, Axiom Space CEO Mike Suffredini wanted to take a moment to reflect on this, the second Axiom Space mission.
This mission today is very meaningful for Axiom Space. It's a watershed moment because it's our opportunity to really start bringing the rest of the world to the International Space Station. We're honored that the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is flying with us here today. The 2 crew members flying are fantastic. They've done a great job in training. Of course, John Schaffner's been with us for a while. He's a backup on AX-1. We're excited for him to fly. Of course, the commander's Peggy Whitson, and while she's the first woman commander for a commercial mission, that's a big deal to us. I really don't think it's a huge deal to Peggy. She's flown so many times. This is, like riding a bike. But we're very excited for this crew, and we're looking forward to their mission. So, we don't do this by ourselves. Axiom is a wonderful company with fantastic employees. They've done quite a bit of work to get to this point. The commander is one of our very own as well. But our
මේ සමහර විට මේ ඔය මේ චොප්ස්ටික් කාම්ස් දෙක මේ ඉස්සර ඩිසයින් කරලා තිබුණේ මේ ඔහොම ස්ටාර්ෂිප් එක මේ කැච් කරන්න නෙමේ. අර ඒක ඩිසයින් කරලා තිබුණේ නිකන් අර දෙපැත්තෙන් මෙහෙම ඇවිල්ලා මෙහෙම කැච් කරන්න වගේ සීන් එකකට තමයි ඔය ඉස්සර චොප්ස්ටික් කාම්ස් දෙක ඩිසයින් කරලා තිබිලා තියෙන්නේ. හැබැයි ඔය පස්සේ තමයි ඔය මේ හෙනට දික් වෙලා මෙහෙම ඔය ඉස්සර ක්වික් ඩිස්කනෙක්ට් ආම් එකනුත් ඔය ස්ටාර්ෂිප් එක ක්වික් ඩිස්කනෙක්ට් ආම් එකනුත් මේ ඔහොම නෙමෙයි තියෙන ඩිසයින් කරලා තිබිලා තියෙන්නේ. ඒකත් අර ස්ටාර්ෂිප් එක මෙහෙම ගිහිල්ලා නිකන් අල්ලගන්න වගේ තමයි හදලා තින්නේ. පස්සේ තමයි දැන් මේ avionics ground control system එකයි propulsion පැත්තයි මේ propellant පැත්තයි බලන්නනේ විතරක් බලන්නේ. ඉස්සර quick disconnect arm එකත් ඔහොම නෙමෙයි තිබිලා තියෙන්නේ. සමහර විට ඒකත් දන්නේ නැහැ. Guys, 30 minutes and 30 seconds.
Speed.
Just under 13 and a half minutes, and everything continues to look good for launch of Falcon 9 and Dragon. Now, currently,
Peggy,
Falcon 9 began
we are still tracking no issues
35
on Dragon for today's launch. We have continued weather evaluations, and for your awareness, we are monitoring an anvil cloud that is moving towards LC-39A. It's currently 5 miles away, and it just needs to remain outside of 3 miles for launch to continue. The weather officer is going to continue monitoring this cloud and will continue to provide updates to the launch teams. How copy?
අඩු වැහි වලාකුලක් තියනවලු මේ 75ක් එහයි. ඒක 73ක රේඩියස් එකකට આવොත් එහෙම බෝඩ් කරයි වගේ. මේ ප්‍රාර්ථනා කරන්න හුලගක්වත් ඇවිල්ලා වැහි වලාකුල යන්න කියලා.
For the Falcon 9 valve, the Falcon team is going to be performing that manual evaluation of the manifold pressure until T minus 35 seconds. And if we do not pass those checks, the Falcon team will call a hold. If the evaluation passes, there will be no call made and we will continue with the countdown. So again, at T-minus 35 seconds following the manual evaluation, if we do not pass those checks, the Falcon team will call a hold. But if there is no call, we have passed the checks and we will continue with countdown.
අඩ හෝල් කරයි වගේ මෙහෙම යොත්
Dragon copies. Manual evaluation. We'll call a hold. If
50-50
it's not
වගේ
passing the
chances
checks,
තියෙනවා.
expect no call if it looks good.
Good route back.
I like that comment. Thinking dry thoughts. Now we're talking about propellant loading. RP1 fuel is completely loaded on the second stage. Fuel loading is continuing on the first stage. We're just about full. It'll finish up at the T-minus 6 minute mark. Densified liquid oxygen loading is continuing on the first stage and the second stage. Both stages well underway. First stage is nearing a completion, but it won't wrap up until T-minus 3 minutes. The second stage just began a few minutes ago. That'll wrap up at T-minus 2 minutes. As we get closer to launch, we will do various checkouts. One is the thrust vector controllers. These are what move the engine nozzles around on the first and second stage engine. And when we move those nozzles, we call it TVC wiggles. Those will be done inside 10 minutes. We'll also be doing checkouts of throttle valves on the engine. Now the range currently is go. Air and sea space are clear. The weather, you heard the briefing from the Corps up to the crew. We're watching one anvil cloud. It's within 5 miles, but it's got to just stay more than 3 miles away, and we will be go to fly. And meanwhile, the Dragon team also had reported they're working no issues. Everything is complete through the countdown. The comm checkouts are finished. The access arm is retracted. The launch escape system is armed. The crew is strapped in and ready to go. We're coming up on final instructions of the crew. We'll hear that at T-minus 10 minutes. They'll configure their displays for launch. They'll get the last messages, and then we'll go into the terminal countdown sequence. Let's listen into the countdown net.
Dragon SpaceX, confirm crew displays are configured for launch.
And SpaceX Dragon, we can confirm crew displays are configured for launch.
SpaceX copies. And on behalf of the entire SpaceX team, we are honored to have you aboard Dragon Capsule Freedom today on its next trip to the International Space Station and the second Axiom crew mission. We wish you a great mission, good luck, Godspeed, and enjoy the ride.
Yes!
Let freedom fly.
Enjoy the ride.
Hear the crew calling back to the ground, let freedom fly. We see them applauding. Everything continuing to look good. We're coming up on 9 minutes to launch. Next major event is going to be engine chill at T-minus 7 minutes.
As John just said, at T-minus 7 minutes, we will begin to flow a little bit of the super chilled liquid oxygen through the turbo pumps, which that is basically chilling the hardware, performing an engine chill prior to the full flow. We do that in order to help minimize the chances of the hardware experiencing any thermal shock when that full flow of super chilled liquid oxygen occurs. Now we can see some venting from the vehicle now, totally normal. It is that liquid oxygen just vaporizing as it comes into contact with the ambient air.
And Kate, maybe this is an opportunity, you know, we always use the word abort. This might be a chance to let everybody know that there are abort call-outs in flight that we're going to hear. Those are just heads up to the crew that says should a contingency occur, there's different actions that'll happen at each various stage of the flight when you're on first stage or when you're on second stage.
That's right. We should actually hear Commander Peggy Whitson calling those abort modes out as they are ascending and really getting to orbit. She is tracking everything on her, both her tablet as well on her leg, as well as the crew display above her head. So she is able to identify at which mode they are entering, and those modes identify basically where and what sequence Dragon would take at that point in time during the flight. Now we're about 10 seconds away from that engine chill for the first stage.
Engine chill has started.
All right, right on time. We've opened the valves that are letting liquid oxygen and kerosene fuel down to the Merlin 1D engines on the first stage.
Engine chill.
Our next major activity coming up at T-minus 6 minutes
අපි chill
approximately.
එකේ ඉන්නේ.
We'll hear the announcement that fuel loading is complete on the first stage. And one other comment, while we were hearing the briefing to the crew at the T-minus 10-minute mark, we also heard reference to a call out that may or may not be made at T-minus 35 seconds. Many of the checkouts of the Falcon 9 are done by computer in the last minute. There is one
Connection
today that
dropped.
requires
මගේ
an
නෙමෙයිනේ.
engineer to look at some data. If,
My
for
connection.
example, that system had an issue, that would be called out at T-minus 35 seconds. Right now, everything continues to look good, though, on Falcon 9.
විනාඩි 5යි.
We also heard in the briefing that they are tracking an anvil cloud that at the time of the briefing was about 5 miles away from the pad. They are tracking it. It just needs to stay outside of 3 miles. So everything still continues to look okay on that front. The next call out that we'll hear in about 30 seconds is that Dragon has transitioned to the terminal count configuration. That's basically an indication that the Dragon spacecraft has taken over the spacecraft's countdown and will at that point be on internal power. At this point in time, RP1 is now completely loaded, both on the first and second stages. LOX load continues on both stages. It'll wrap up at T-minus 3 minutes for first stage and T-minus 2 minutes for second stage.
Falcon 9 tanks are pressurizing for Trongback retract.
නේද හොඳට අහගෙන ඉන්නවා hold කියන
Pressurization call out. We are putting pressurized gas helium onto the stage in preparation for opening up the
Storm
clamp
battery
that's
track.
around the top of the second stage. That'll happen just at about the T-minus 4 minute mark. The clamp arm will open, and about 10 seconds after that, the strong back, the structure alongside the Falcon 9, will recline just
Strong back
about
is
2 degrees away. We've heard the call out, strong back is retracting. That starts the sequence now in the ground computer to open the arms and recline that strong back about 2 degrees away. At liftoff, hydraulics will then pull the strong back to a position about 45 degrees away from the rocket as it flies out of the launch mount. See the arms opening up now around the second stage.
We should now be able to see that strong back retract just a couple degrees away from the launch vehicle. Upon liftoff, it will move back even further in order to clear the way for Falcon 9. Looks like we can start to see that movement now.
Oh.
This structure is what is utilized to horizontally integrate the vehicles while still in the hangar, as well as transport them horizontally to the launch pad and then raise them to their vertical launch
හැඟ
position.
එක අයින් වෙනවා
And we've got the strong back is now. You see a little bounce there as it stops.
Stage 1 LOX load is complete.
And right on time, stage 1 LOX load is complete. We're down to just loading a liquid oxygen on the second stage. That'll wrap up just after T-minus 2 minutes, at which point we'll have the 1 million pounds of propellant on board Falcon 9 ready to fly.
We can see the vehicle continuing to vent some of that gaseous or the liquid oxygen that has now vaporized.
Dragon is in terminal count and is on internal power.
internal power
We have a live view there of the SpaceX team here at headquarters in Mission Control on the left-hand side, as well as the Axiom team from their own Mission Control as well on the right.
Dragon SpaceX for weather. Looks like the system has cleared, and we're looking like we're go for launch for weather.
All right, we've heard a good news information to the crew.
Dragon copies.
We're letting them know that it appears the weather is going to avoid the area.
That is great news indeed.
Just waiting now for the call out. Liquid oxygen load complete on the second stage.
Stage 2, LOX load is complete.
Stage 2 looks complete.
Dragon is in auto idle.
Dragon is auto wide. Start up එකට තව විනාඩි තප්පර
Ground
30යි.
gas closeouts, expect loud venting.
Ventilation එක.
At venting, we're now bleeding off
කට්ටිය
excess
ගම්මලා.
pressure in the strongback. That's what's giving that large white plume.
Let the freedom
As
fly.
cold gas meets the warm Florida air and condenses the moisture. Coming up on 1 minute where the flight computers will take over the sequence. Let's listen in to the launch of Falcon 9 with Dragon and the Axiom 2 crew.
FTS is armed, Falcon 9 is in startup and is now controlling.
Start up again.
Dragon is in countdown.
Happy flight. Respect.
Dragon, SpaceX, go for launch.
Go for launch.
Dragon copies. Go for launch.
Safe ride, astronauts.
T minus 30 seconds.
30 seconds. Drone shot එක කල්ලයි වගේ අද.
T minus 15.
15.
T minus 10. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Engines full power. And lift off Falcon 9. Go Axiom.
It's 1 Alpha.
Copy, 1 Alpha.
Together, we expand what is possible in low Earth orbit. Ad Astra and Godspeed AX2.
Tilt එක.
Plus 30 seconds into this historic. T plus 36 seconds into flight. A great view of Falcon 9 heading to space.
Power telemetry is nominal.
Stage
Stage 1 throttle down.
Power telemetry nominal. We're into the throttle bucket. The first stage is throttle down power on the Merlin engines.
Throttle
in
down.
preparation for max Q.
Max Q.
Falcon 9 is supersonic.
Max Q, bro.
Faster than the speed of sound as we're getting great views from the first stage camera looking back at Kennedy Space Center Complex 39A.
Stage 1 throttle up.
Max Q.
We're out of the throttle bucket.
Stage 1 Bravo.
Copy, 1 Bravo.
We're at full power, and that call on 1 Bravo, that's another one of those abort modes. As we get higher and faster, the logic for Dragon, should a contingency occur, changes from stage to stage.
Impact chill is underway.
Chill announcement says we're getting the turbo pump on the second stage engine cooled down in preparation for its light up coming up in just another minute from now. Again, great views looking back, and you can see the contrail as we left 39A and the shadow of the contrail against the cloud deck around Florida.
Trajectory.
And we're coming up 3 big sequences and a view live of the crew inside Dragon. They're getting ready. We're going to get 3 events here. Main engine cutoff, stage separation, and then we're going to light the second stage engine. We've heard the throttle down in preparation for stage separation.
කාර එකක් පාර යද්දි තෙල්ලෙනවා ඊට වැඩි.
Nico.
Miko.
2 Alpha.
Stage separation confirmed.
Stage separation.
Copy 2 Alpha. And back ignition.
Stage 1 boost back startup.
Stage 2.
All right, stage separation. We've lit the second stage engine. The first stage is into the boost back burn, working its way back towards Cape Canaveral.
අඩු stage 2 එකේ engine startup එක හරි බඩුපත්.
Views on the left side, that's the first stage. Engines running as we come back to the launch site or the landing site. Second stage, engine nozzle is visible on the right side as we're powering the Axiom 2 crew into low Earth orbit on the way to the International Space Station.
Second.
Waiting for call out that the boost back burn is complete.
Boost back burn.
Stage 1 boost back shutdown.
Right on time. First stage completed the first of 3 burns heading back to the landing site. Second stage continuing on power and on trajectory.
Acquisition signal, Bermuda.
We head northeast, the Bermuda ground station.
Dragon, SpaceX, trajectory nominal.
Bermuda is listening in to the vehicle now.
Nominal trajectory.
And the crew hears the call out of a nominal trajectory. So 4 minutes into flight, everything continuing to go well. First stage heading back. And there's the crew on the second stage getting the ride into orbit to the space station.
Entry burn එකට තව විනාඩි 2ක් විතර තියෙනවා.
Coming up, we're waiting for the next trajectory call out from the guidance officer.
Dragon, SpaceX, trajectory nominal.
Love to hear those words. A nominal trajectory for Dragon.
Copy. Nominal trajectory.
And maybe even a little bit of excitement in the crew's voice. Commander Peggy Whitson calling back down, hearing that call out from GNC of a nominal trajectory.
Nominal trajectory.
Left side of the screen, you can see the first stage. It's now beginning to orient itself so that the engines are pointed down towards the land as we will be descending towards landing zone 1 in Cape Canaveral. The 4 titanium grid fins have all deployed. They'll help guide
Acquisition signal, boss.
They'll guide the first stage through once we get into the atmosphere following the entry burn, which will be coming up here in another couple of minutes. On the right-hand side, the second stage with the Dragon capsule on top, heading up the eastern seaboard of the U.S. We've just heard the call out of Boston. That's the New Hampshire tracking station, has picked up the signal.
Dragon, SpaceX, trajectory nominal.
GNC continuing to make those call outs that we want to hear. Everything
Trajectory
continuing to look
nominal.
good. And the crew echoing them right back down. Good comms with the crew. We've been able to bring some live video shots from inside the capsule as they're headed to space. And there's another view of the crew.
Stage 1 entry burn startup.
And there we heard that the startup burn for that stage 1 booster, you can see it there on the left-hand side of your screen, has now begun.
Stage 1 entry burn shutdown.
And conclusion of that entry burn, that burn helps to slow the vehicle down as it re-enters the Earth's atmosphere. The first stage sees high drag, which scrubs roughly 70% of the velocity by the time that
Dragon,
landing.
SpaceX, trajectory nominal.
Love to hear that call out. Everything.
Nominal trajectory.
Beautiful view of planet Earth coming to us from the second stage views on the right-hand side. Left-hand side, our first view of the Space Coast once again. This booster is attempting a landing at LZ-1.
Stage 1 transonic.
That booster is now traveling near the speed of sound. Live view coming to you from one of our tracking cameras. We can see the grid fins actuating to help steer the booster down.
Whoa, get. What
Stage
the
1 landing
shit, man?
bird.
Stage 2 FTS has saved.
Standing by to...
Stage 1 landing leg deploy.
Ayyo පොඩ්ඩක් ගියා.
There
Stage 1 landing confirmed.
You can see that first stage has landed back at LZ1. This is the first time that we have performed a land landing on a crew mission.
මැද්දෙන් පොඩ්ඩක් ගියා. හරි මැද්දම ලයින් කරන ඉතින් හොඳයි නෑ කියන්නේ නෑ ඉතින්. Okay.
For SECO, and that's where after that engine cuts off, the second stage will coast for a few minutes until Dragon is commanded to separate.
Stage 2 is in terminal guidance.
යාළුවනේ අපි second engine cut off එකෙන් ඉස්රේල් එක ඉවර කරමු. නැත්තම් මේ හෙට උදේම නිදා ගන්න තමයි.
Shannon.
Copy, Shannon.
Commander Peggy Whitson continuing to call out the abort modes.
FICO.
Second engine cut off.
All right, on time shutdown of that second engine. Also confirming that the launch escape system is now disarmed.
Dragon SpaceX, nominal orbit insertion.
All right, and there's that call out. We can confirm good orbital insertion.
Copy, nominal insertion.
Dragon SpaceX launch escape system disarmed.
We can see the crew playing with their harnesses
Copy.
now that they are in 0G, which I think we just got a view of our 0G Stuffy.
0G. Man, no gravity, man. Bro, there is no gravity.
Clearly the crew is having fun already. Right after liftoff, I think we heard a laugh coming from Commander Peggy Whitson, which, being a NASA legend and one of the most decorated astronauts of all time, it's amazing to hear that even a space veteran as she still has fun at liftoff. The next event that we have coming up at just around T plus 12 minutes is Dragon separation. That's where the Dragon spacecraft and trunk, so collectively referred to as the Dragon spacecraft, will separate from the second stage.
Acquisition signal is inlet.
After that separation, we will begin to deploy the nose cone, which exposes the forward bulkhead thrusters as well as the forward hatch.
ඊට පස්සේ ඩ්‍රැගන් එකේ පිටිපස්සේ ට්‍රන්ක් එක ඩිප්ලොයි කරනවා. ඊට පස්සේ නෝස් කෝන් එක අරලා ඒකේ thrusters වලට මේ trajectory එක හදන්න ඉඩ දෙනවා. ඒ sequences දෙක තමයි ඊළඟට තියෙන්නේ. එහෙනම් guys, thank you ඔයගොල්ලෝ අද ආවට මේක බලන් හිටියට. අද ගොඩක් කට්ටිය ඇවිල්ලා තිබ්බා. ඉතින් මං ගිහින් එන්නම්. ආයෙත් ලයිව් එකකින් සෙට් වෙමු. සෙදිකටම සෙට් වෙලා ඉන්න කට්ටිය Facebook group එකට සෙට් වෙන්න කට්ටිය like එකක් දාන්න, subscribe කරන්න, share කරන්න. එහෙනම් good night. ආයෙ සෙට් වෙමු. Respect.